Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's a regular council meeting for Newport City Council scheduled for Monday, December 15th at 6 p.m. That's about what time we're starting here. Present, we have council members Carter Finnegan, Andrew Touchette, John Manette, Kevin Charbonneau, Clerk Treasurer Jim Johnson. We've got several staff in the room tonight because of budget conversations. We've got the Director of the Rec Department, Mike Brown, Chief Bingham from the Police Department, Tom Bernier from Public Works, Carrie Schultz is here, Financial and Office Administrator. Am I missing anybody in the room? And then online, Chip Stearns is with us tonight to give us some updates on finances. He's from Nemrick and our consultancy there. And the other person we should probably introduce is Dominic Cloud, who we're going to start our agenda with as soon as we get through the consent agenda. So that's our list. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Carter?
None.
Adrian?
No.
Jim? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda includes approval of minutes from the 1st of December. That was our last meeting. The AP warrants from the 4th of December and the 12th of December. Payroll warrant from December 10th. And one permit request, it's actually 3 for one business, Jasper's Tavern. Are there any questions about anything that's contained in the consent agenda? Hearing none, any comments or questions from anybody in the community about the consent agenda? Okay, I hear none.
I actually have one question, sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
can find it. There is a line, let me find, it's on page 2 of unpaid invoices for account from December 5th on page 2. There's a large line item, and I just don't understand what it is. So it says M&T Bank, Wilmington Trust. So it's about for $240,000. What is that?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
So it's on the second page of the AP report from the 4th of December.
Yeah.
It's a loan.
It's a loan
It's a
payment.
loan
That's a loan payment.
Okay,
One of the revolving loans.
okay, thank you.
And we're gonna have a lot of conversation
Yeah.
later tonight because we actually have a functional debt schedule that has a list of every loan we carry right now that Carrie and Chip can review with us tonight.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I've got a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second, all those in favor please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Great. So next item on the agenda is we promised that Carter and I would do some reference checks and have some conversation with Dominic Cloud from Vermont League of Cities and Towns. He also serves as the city manager in the city of St. Albans. And we've done that. Carter and I can report back on those reference checks in a few moments. And we have a proposed contract in your packets that had one typo at the very top. It said Vermont League of Cities and Cities. I suspect somebody tried to replace the Newport town with Newport City with a find and replace. So I've crossed that out and replaced it with Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And I think the best way to handle this, people have had this to look at for the weekend. And I'm thinking, Dominic, that it would be great if you could introduce yourself to folks and then just talk through how you normally handle a search like this one, and then we'll see what questions the council members have and see if anybody else in the community has any questions.
That sounds great. My name is Dominic Cloud. I'm a part-time consultant to the League. I spent 7 years at the League running their Municipal Assistance Center prior to moving to St. Albans. And I've been the city manager in St. Albans for 17 years. 3 years ago, the League asked me to return and work on a part-time basis and help them facilitate manager searches. And I jumped at the chance because my experience in St. Albans has shown that getting the right fit between the manager and the board and the manager and the community can make all the difference in the trajectory of the community. St. Albans has had a really good run at it for the last decade or so. And most of that is due to the fit and the alignment between the voters, the elected officials, and the staff that are charged with implementing their vision. For the last 3 years, I've been leading the manager search process for the league. And in that role, I step into the role that the manager typically operates within the community. And so we begin with a brief strategic analysis, a SWOT, where we take a look at not just the organization of the city or the town, but also the community as a whole, their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That then informs the profile of the candidate. I then write that up in an iterative process with whoever we're working with. Sometimes it's a hiring committee, sometimes it's the elected officials themselves. We produce a promotional brochure which is aspirational and is designed to attract the right type of candidate with the right who's coming to the community for the right reasons, running towards something and not away from something, as I often say. And then we provide the community with that list of resumes. Usually it's around 30 or 40. There's a short list within that of these are the folks who we think are worth talking to. Rarely does my list at the proposal end up as the final list, which is as it should be. We then write the interview questions for the first round hiring committee to review. We oftentimes tweak those a little bit as well. We're there on the day of the event. We're not in the room, but we're just outside helping to debrief and facilitate the conversation with the team that's doing the first round interview. The same process occurs then in the second round. Oftentimes there's a lead candidate or two, and we advise the board in how to structure that offer. When there's a hiring committee involved, typically it's the city council in the second round. Sometimes with some folks that are continuing on after the first round. And then we work towards getting an offer out to the candidate. In between the second round and the third round, we do some reference checks, both formal and informal. And then the offer is typically extended contingent upon a successful criminal and civil background check. We facilitate that with the private investigator and work then as a broker between the candidate, the board on the terms, and the city attorney who's writing everything up. So throughout it all, we serve as the contact with the candidates. It's a confidential process. Oftentimes your strongest candidates are working within the region, and we want them to feel encouraged to apply. So that's a whirlwind tour through it. Other welcome questions or areas that you'd like to dive into a little deeper.
Council members?
I would say one question that I heard from residents when we last brought this up, and Dominic spoke to it. I think I asked you directly when we had a meeting with Rick, but also upon reference checks, is where do people post things? Where are these listings going? And is it a far-reaching search? And very, Dominic reiterated, but also reference checks supported that they get contacts or at least resumes and interest from across the region and across the country, like from the Midwest down south. So they really do, he does a great job getting the word out so that not only locals can apply, but also different types of applicants. So that was nice to hear.
Do you want to add anything to that, Dominic?
Yeah, just 100%. It's both a national search and a regional search. With your location, we would bolster some of our contacts in New Hampshire, reach out to some managers over there, ask them to send it to their friends, post it on their LinkedIn pages, that type of thing, as well as continue to advertise in leagues throughout New England, the International City Management Association. Sometimes we'll target county organizations, but the ICMA is the primary vehicle for folks that are looking for work across the country.
Council members, questions? Dominic, can you talk a little bit about the timeline, kind of what you expect in terms of how this process would play out over how many months?
Sure. We generally plan for 5 months. Sometimes it can be done a little bit shorter, closer to 4. It depends on what holidays you hit there. With this search, we'd probably be getting started early in the new year, and so having somebody on board, so I say 5 months to get an offer out. So, the candidate oftentimes has to, depending on where they're coming from, they need some transition time. But I think you're on track for a July 1 start with a candidate selected sometime late spring, early summer.
Great, thank you. I'll just add that Carter and I did reach out. We had 4 reference checks references that we could call that Dominic provided. I had an extended conversation with someone from Morristown from a relatively recent search. All of these are relatively recent searches, actually, in the last 3 or 4 years. Carter and I together interviewed at some significant length a woman from the select board, chair of the trustees in Woodstock. And then we also did another one for Springfield, right? And we had a written reference. We were unable to schedule or unable to follow through on a meeting with that person, but someone from Hartford, town of Hartford, provided a reference check for us today in writing. All of them were superlative. All of them matched basically what Dominic has been telling us about the process. And I would say all 4 of them have spoken about their experience of working with Dominic, and that he was really great at working with the community, working with the council or the select board and the community to bring them along.
Thank you.
Community residents, are there specific questions you want to direct to me, and then we'll ask Dominic if he'd like to try and answer them? Go ahead, Lori.
How does this differ, if at all, from our most recent search over the last 2 years?
Biggest difference is it's a different company, it's a different person. It's still through the VLCT. The contract would actually be with Vermont League of Cities and Towns, as it was the last time, but it's a different person. Anything you want to add to that, Dominic?
I don't know too much about that situation. I think I would just say, our record, I think, in the past searches that the mayor was referencing speaks to itself, and we make a priority out of this. Our mission is to serve and strengthen Vermont local government, and we find that getting the right leaders in place at the right time makes all the difference. So for us, it's really not just about fulfilling a contract, but it's also about strengthening the institution of local government.
Thank you, Dominic. Other questions or concerns? Kitty?
What if someone gets to maybe the 3rd round or something and they have to drop out? Or it's the first candidate and they have to drop out, they have a family emergency, I don't know, their spouse dies in a car accident, or I don't know what, but then what does that mean for the search process?
Oh, did you get that, Dominic?
I think so. It depends on where they are in terms of desirability. And if this is your lead candidate who checks all the boxes that we came up with in the candidate profile, it might be worth finding out what's going on in that person's life and adjusting the process accordingly. If they're in the 2nd round and they're the 2nd place candidate of 3 candidates who are all pretty evenly positioned, then we would adjust accordingly there. At the 1st round, I advise communities to cast a wide net. Anybody who piques your interest, it's like speed dating. You got nothing to lose, everything to gain. So you want to have a conversation with this person, invite them in for an interview. As the process goes along, the bar gets a little bit higher, but it's not over until that contract is signed. And so I like to go into the final round with as many candidates as you could envision doing the job. I also tell the hiring committee and the elected officials that the person that you hire, they've got your brand on them when they're walking around Main Street. So pay attention to how you feel when you're in a meeting with them. You want to be talking to this person late at night on a Monday when you could be at home with your family. They should have enjoyable affect about them. These jobs are in large part people jobs.
Thank you, Dominic. Other questions in the community? Go ahead, Jennifer.
The cost of the extraneous, advertising, et cetera, is there a ballpark on?
Yes, the contract is for $12,000 with an estimated between $3,100 and $5,000 in related expenses. Did I get that right, Dominic?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good question. Anything else? Ann?
Have you had situations prior to this in which maybe a member of the council of that city has applied for a city manager job, and what issues does that pose for you?
Generally, they have to, they have to pick a lane, right? So we had a search where a sitting member wanted to throw their hat into the ring, and that was fine, but then they needed to withdraw from any discussion with their select board hat on. It's not common, but it does happen from time to time. The other far more common situation is you have a sitting staff member who throws their hat into the ring, and managing that through the process.
Thank you, Don. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Council members, any further questions that you folks have?
I would just say one thing that surprised me out of doing the reference check that wasn't completely on my radar, but one of the folks talked extensively about how Dominic really helped the off-ramp. So it wasn't just until we signed on the new person, he stuck around for a minute to make sure that the transition actually was successful, which I found really nice. It wasn't just like, okay, my job is done here, see ya. So I don't know if that was a special case, but it was just nice to know that the care and intention was there and could be there if needed. So
I think you offered to make the drive from St. Albans every time we buy good pizza, didn't you, Dominic?
I did. That said, we haven't had that pizza yet.
Noted.
I do like to come up and, at least early on, I have to get a feel for the community in order to, and I have to I gotta sense the vibe in order to figure out who's gonna fit in, so, I don't mind the drive, the FaceTime is part of the job.
Okay. Council members, I would accept a motion to approve the contract and approve my signing the contract on your behalf with Vermont League of Cities and Towns as it's been presented, with the one change being in the title to change Vermont League of Cities and Cities to Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any further conversation? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Dominic, thank you very much for your time tonight. Carter or I will follow up and we'll talk about how to get you moving with our conversation here sometime in January.
Sounds good. Have a good holiday. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oops. Oh, Carrie, I need a favor. I just signed in the wrong spot. Can you,
Here, listen.
wait, I have another copy. Never mind. Let's try this again, shall we? All right, let's see if I can sign the right spot. And who needs this, Jim, you or Carrie? Carrie would take it, right?
There you go.
Okay, put that one in this pile here. Okay, item number 5 We are coming back around for what I hope is going to be our final conversation, for now at least, about the personnel policy. Kevin and I have done another round with Carrie and John Klesch to try and reflect the questions and concerns and changes that we wanted to make to the policy. And John Klesch, our attorney, is here with us now, and I would welcome a series of 2 motions that I can help you to make to go into executive session for what I expect to be a fairly brief session with our attorney, and then to come out and determine whether or not the council would like to take action. So if you want to go into executive session, it will take that 2-part dance that we often do. Our first motion, making a specific finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body at a substantial disadvantage. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Kevin's made the motion. I have a
I'll
second.
second.
John seconded. Any conversation or questions about that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Then we need a second motion to go into executive session following 1 VSA 313A1F for confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Kevin makes a motion.
I'll second.
John seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in executive session. May I have a motion to bring us out of executive session during which no action was taken?
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second, and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. So here's the process by which we're going to do this, what I hope is our last conversation about this for a very long time. We're going to open up the table for any council members to make any comments they'd like about the current draft that's before us. We will invite comments from the community for no more than 2 minutes each tonight. We're going to put people on a timeline because we got a lot to talk about tonight. Then we'll bring it back to council and invite a motion, if the council is prepared to do so, to pass the document. Council will be given an opportunity to speak one more time, and then we'll vote. Okay? So, council members, you have the new document before you. What say you?
I say we make a motion to approve it.
You're ready to do it? Any other comments about the changes or anything else? Okay, well, Kevin, if you want to put the motion on the table now and then we can just take comments from the community, that's fine. You want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the revised Newport City personnel policy.
Okay,
Second?
and I have a second. Okay. Council members, any further comments before we invite community residents to make comments?
No, I appreciate all the work that's gone into this revision. I think this draft, or this revised rendition is much more respectful, has a more clear tone, and is consistent throughout. Still supports the, I'm not even gonna try to say it correctly, but the hourly situation where you're set at a shift and then your overtime per day, so that helps out. I know a couple departments really wanted to see that, so that stayed. And this just feels a lot better, so thank you to those involved and the comments that also approved it.
Thank you. The only other comment I would make is that the box under section 19, there's a typo that Carrie has already caught and is addressing. So just so you know, that confused typo there happened when I think maybe I changed the font. So, okay, community residents, any comments or questions you'd like to make about the document as it's proposed?
I have a question,
Go ahead.
and I do apologize, Rick, but I did not have sufficient time to go over this with a fine-tooth comb. So did you take out the at-will language?
So on the very first page, I'll just answer that question because I suspect other people have it as well. The section 1, the language still says at the end of the section, just to be clear about intent, it's much different in tone than the last version. But the last sentence in that first section still says, each staff member has the right to end employment with the city at any time for any reason, and the city reserves the same right. Any other questions or comments?
So may I?
Okay, now you're on a 2-minute clock, and I'm not going to go back and forth. If
Yep,
you
I
have a comment, you're
understand.
welcome to make it.
So I really disagree with this concept that they're going to be fire at will people, which effectively this does do. Part of it is the fact that you've got union employees that are not fire at will. They're for cause based on the collective bargaining agreement. This is but a very small number of city employees as compared to the vast number that are out there. And to be treating the two groups of people as completely differently in this regard, in my opinion, I mean, it's wrong. It's just flat out wrong. It also just doesn't show respect for the city employees. If they're not doing their jobs, then you have their cause and fire them. You know, you have to go through the documentation program with the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement union people anyhow. So how is it any different that you're going to do it with the non-union employees? Why should you say, oh, we have to do this with the union employees, but for the non-union, we don't have to, we can just can them? And I don't want my city officials to be the subjects of political aspirations. And by leaving this language in there, you open that door widely for that to happen. Widely. I don't want my city services to be such that I have to worry about somebody with nefarious, objectives, self-serving objectives coming in here and firing them because they want their brother in the position, or they want, they got some grudge from 20 years ago and they don't like this person, they're going to put them out, or whatever the case is. I, as a resident, don't want that to be a possibility. It should be for cause.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions? Seeing none, council members, are there comments or questions or other comments you'd like to make before we vote? Go ahead, Kevin.
The employees actually have a leg up over the city. They can quit any time. If they were fired for some reason, Section 33, the grievance procedure, gives them an outlet to grieve it and come before the council.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything else? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion and a second to pass the document with the understanding that Carrie's going to fix that box for us, and I think number 19. And we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries, and we have a revised personnel policy. Thank you for all who put so much effort into this. John Klesch, if you're still with us, thank you for your help too. Okay, next item on the agenda. Congratulations, council members. We've been talking about that document for a very, very long time. Next item on the agenda is a resolution regarding snowmobile use of the BB Spur Rail Trail. You have the draft resolution before you. This is a resolution that was written by members of the community and shared with our city council, and I believe it's also gone to the Derby Select Board. I did reach out to try and talk with someone from the Derby Select Board and was not able to get hold of them just to hear what they were thinking about it, just so you all know. And I think what we might want to do is, before putting a motion on the table, just hear what folks have to say. So council members, let's give you the first crack at it. Anybody who would like to speak to it. Let me just say this. For those who are not aware of what this conversation is about, what's going on here is that the BB Spur Rail Trail, which is an extension of our waterfront recreation path, right? It basically starts on the other side of the hospital, and between the two of them, they make a roughly 6.5 or 7 mile trip from total, 6.5 to 7 miles total, from here to the just shy of the Canadian border in Beatty, the town of Beatty Plains. Hold on, I'm going to give plenty of chance to talk. What is raising people's ire, at least many people I've spoken with, is that there are people who live along the rail trail itself who have asked for permission or who have stated an intention to use the trail for snowmobile traffic. And the trail has been used for several years now, primarily as groomed space for cross-country skiers and the like. So that's where this draft resolution comes from. I will tell both council members and members of the community, I spoke to Jackie Casino from VTrans, had a long conversation with her, and basically what she said was her read of the statute is that this is an allowed use, and that short of some kind of legislative action, she's not prepared to change that allowed use. She was very thoughtful, very respectful, and by the way, she offered to come and meet with us at any time we ask. So if you would like more conversation, we can have that. And at the end of the conversation, she said, there is a way to address it if you want, and that would probably have to be through some kind of specific legislative action with help from our state legislators. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Are there council member comments before we ask members of the community to speak? John?
I was the chair of the Derby Planning Commission when the trail was proposed, and all through the presentations to the Planning Commission during the 2 or 3 year lead up to constructing it, and during the construction period, the trail was presented by everybody involved who had a role in its creation as being for non-motorized recreation, i.e. no snowmobiles, no four-wheelers, no motorbikes. And having used the trail quite a bit, summers anyway, bicycling, it's just not that wide. Mm-hmm. And having had a vast trail run through my property when I lived in Derby and had to deal with all of the downsides and user abuse and other issues that we had, I think this resolution is pretty much a no-brainer. And getting the local legislators to actually try to pursue a change to protect the trail is worthwhile.
Thank you, John. Other members of the council want to speak to this?
Yeah, I would concur. My conversations with not only like my immediate neighbors, but last week my washer broke down and the plumber came in and he asked, "What do you think about this whole proposal?" And I was like, "What do you think?" And he basically realized that he really has concerns around snowmobilers on it because he takes his family there, and he would absolutely not even consider going there in the winter with snowmobiles. And that really was crushing because, I use that trail year round. It's gorgeous, it's wonderful, it's precious. Snowmobilers have the bounty of what is the lake, and they also have an extensive network of vast trails, which is wonderful. And that takes a lot of collaboration and land ownership partnerships, and I have nothing against that. Like, that is something that's actually like kind of a Vermont character, and so I really do see the bike path as its current use, as its intended use. And I would also echo that I would like to collaborate and get our voices heard by our local legislatures to maintain it, because it is a very unique, it's hard because it's one of many, rail trails in the state, but it's very different in some ways. And so I think those uniqueness lends towards looking at this a little differently. So, yeah.
Thank you, Carl. Anyone else?
I believe the high school Nordic team uses that for training, as well as Primo's Woods. It's actually one of the few places nearby where they can, in fact, practice.
Thank you, Cal. Do you want to add anything?
No, I agree.
Members of the community, we're going to keep y'all on a relatively tight leash because we've got a lot of folks here. So please try and keep your comments brief. If you go over about 90 seconds, we're going to give you the high sign that you need to we've got a lot on our agenda tonight, and you just heard where the council stands. You're welcome to speak. Go ahead.
All right, my name's Chet Greenwood. I've lived on the path since 1972 when they had rail trains running. This is a statement when John was mentioning the Act 250 way back in 1998. The environmental commissioner, John Ewing, said in a statement, and you can look at it, we will not allow motorized vehicles on this path. AOT has made this following commitment to the community. It's been in effect for 25 years. Here's the bike path, here's the sign, and they're still there. The snowmobile sign disappeared mysteriously, but the no motorized vehicle signs are still there for 25 years. Now VAS comes in. VAS comes in, not VAS. This is not about VAS. VAS is a great organization. They don't even want this. This is V-Trans. They come in and say, whatever John Ewing said in 1998, forget it. We're going to change. And matter of fact, we're going to reclassify snow machines and e-bikes as non-motorized. There's fat wheel bikes all went along. Here's how it's groomed. This is the only groomed public path in Orleans County. The only one in Orleans County. Where you can take your family, you can't afford a snow machine, you go out there and you take your family. The seniors go out there, exercise, the kids. Kevin said, I didn't know that, but about the students, the ski team. This shows how steep it is. It's only 8 feet wide. Snow machines are 4 feet wide. You get, if you meet and you made a little error of judgment, you're in the lake or in the swamp. You're gonna have these. You can't classic ski and mix with snow machines. Here's a map. This map is the from Jay Peak to New Hampshire. This is the vast ski trail maps. Right? Here's BB Spur, 1 inch up here in the corner, and they want to take it away from us. They said you can't have it. We're gonna paint that red. This is V-Trans. This is not.
I'll give Chet my 90 seconds.
Okay, keep going if you want another 90 seconds.
He can have mine as well.
Okay, but we're not going to do this all night.
No,
Please keep your comments brief.
I'm almost done. I got one more thing. So these you can have, but that little, we want that. You can't mix some of the skiing and these people, women that come out with sleds with the kids in it. And I live there and I see it all the time. You meet a snow machine, the snow machine's not gonna get off the path. The mother with the 2 kids in the sled are gonna have to get off the path. All right. V-Trans told somebody that you have no standing if you don't own property on it. You have no standing. She said the only people complaining about the bike path are the property owners. So my neighbor Terry Lucas and I said, well, we're gonna do an online petition. 4 days, we got 602 names as of 6 o'clock this morning. We got 625 as tonight. By next Monday, we're gonna have 1,000 names, and half of them, there are 436 of them in Orleans County. And every town in Orleans County, except for one, is on this. So people come all over to use it. It's the only one in Orleans County. And it's only 4 miles long. It's less than 4, 3 3/4.
Thank you.
You look at these pictures.
Well and pithily said. Are there others who would like to make comments or add to what we've heard? Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Jillian Stanforth. I live in Derby. I used to live in Newport for 28 years. I actually live on the bike path. And I had called Jackie Casino when we first learned of this. And none of us as abutting landowners were given any notice. And I was actually told that we were not stakeholders. So I think that when Chet's petition proves the point that not just the people that live on the bike path, but the people who live here, recreate here, raise their children, whatever, we are stakeholders, and that's why we did this resolution, because we like the voices of the community, the citizens, the families, whatever. I skied on the bike path Saturday and Sunday. We have a lot of snow, which is great, and it's groomed. It was delightful. There were snowshoers, there were people with dogs, there were walkers, skiers. It's pretty apparent to me that there's a significant safety concern of the mixed use. And I think we're all kind of speaking the same language here. there's one more point. Jackie Casino told me that the way the V-Trans, as the manager for the state, they manage these rail trails, is that the snow machines, the snowmobiles have the right of way, so that if you're on the path as a human-powered entity, snowshoeing, whatever, and snowmobiles appear, you need to leave the path. It's inconceivable, there are some places on that path, there's nowhere to go. So, I don't know if they think that it's okay for people to jump off into these very steep banks. You could, it would be kind of dangerous, and certainly people with little kids or older people, whatever, people with mobility, you have a bad knee, whatever, you don't want to jump in a ditch. So to me, it's a safety problem. It's also, no one's asking VAST to give up anything. We're just asking to preserve what has existed for 25 years in harmony with VAST. And I think that the Northeast Kingdom, we owe it to our community to offer diverse opportunity, and this is one, and if it's taken away, I don't believe you can get it back. So I would appreciate any effort to preserve what we have and what we've known that exists for people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Other folks who'd like to speak to this?
Could you try again?
I can do it again.
Tom, go ahead.
I'm not sure if anybody remembers, but, and I have nothing against snow machines. We walk that path quite often ourselves. But many years ago, the snowmobiles asked to use Western Avenue sidewalk as a trail to access downtown area, and it was a complete disaster. I was totally against it, and you're right. You know, that path is quite a bit wider, but they move very quickly, and they're not going to be the ones moving off the path. The people walking with their dogs and family are the ones that are going to have to move. It'd definitely be a safety concern.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else like to speak to this tonight?
Patrick Early. My only comment is that snow machine use would also probably allow track side-by-side machine use, which are another 16 to 18 inches wider, less maneuverable, and louder at times. So even at slower speeds, they're louder. At slower speeds, they're louder than snow machine. So another thing to consider is that snow machine are many things, not just a snowmobile that you typically see.
I had a quick question to add to that. So if they were allowed to do that and come into Newport onto Party Drive, where are they going from there?
Somebody more well-versed than me should probably answer that.
If they get on a vast trail, they cut across at the end of Prouty Drive, and they cut across by the city garage, and they pick vast up there.
Yeah, but they're riding the sidewalk or the road.
Oh,
to get
yeah,
there.
well, they still do it.
Okay,
Ask these guys. They probably
throwing
see
it out
Okay,
there.
I'm going to take one or two more comments, and then we're going to move on. Go ahead.
My name is Walter Medwood. I live in Derby, and I just wanted to have the record sort of acknowledge the work of the volunteers of the Men for Magog Ski Touring Foundation. For some 20-odd years, volunteers have donated to the community just hours and hours of good service to provide a very healthy, remarkable recreational resource for the area. And I think that's the other thing that's on the table is the work that they have done to make the trail skiable for track skiers as well as skaters, at no expense to the community. Enriches our lives, and so we need to tip our hats off to the foundation, Dr. Primo, Dr. Harris, and the board for donating a community resource that's invaluable. And I think the petition with 600 plus signatures, I think speaks to the value that this resource has to the community. Thank you very much.
Just a very quick question. So the city has written a resolution or whatever we're calling it, and the petition is what is the structure of moving forward with V-Trans? Is that going to be like between Derby and Newport? I mean,
If the city passes this resolution tonight if the council passes this resolution, as mayor, I would send a copy immediately to Jackie and her colleagues in VTrans. And I expect that we would also send copies to our representatives and let them know that we've had a vote. If it's unanimous, based on comments earlier, I suspect it will be, then we would reflect that we have a unanimous council in our conviction that this is an appropriate use of the trail. Last time, Chet, we got to finish up.
Yeah, one thing, we have draft resolution to change the law. It's going to go to the legislators. We've already got.
Great. Council members, any further questions, comments?
I just want to add one tidbit, which is NVDA and VHB work together to do an economic impact analysis on the BB Spur Rail Trail. And there are some really awesome numbers that I'll try to get out into the ether. But Newport, we're trying to defend our outdoor recreation economy, and it's such a precious resource. I know I've already said that, but the fact that it is a nice gentle slope, it's friendly to all users, it's accessible, it's free, it connects, and again, I just want to echo the Men for Magog Ski Trails Foundation, and then also connects to Bluffside. So these are just resources that are awesome and make Newport Newport. And so I just want to, yeah. And then I know tying it to the dollar doesn't feel superhuman, but it's there too. So, all right.
So Carter, do you want to make that in the form of a motion to approve what's on this in your documents? It's called draft resolution. And if you all pass it, it would become a resolution of the City Council, City of Newport, dated 12/15/25.
I would love to make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. And a second. Any further comments from council members? Hearing none, I'll just say to members of the community, I'm grateful for your comments and for the shared use of that property. And we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously, and we'll note that. And Carrie, I'm going to ask that you help me kind of follow up later this week with the appropriate folks that I just said we'd send it to, so we don't lose it.
Do you want me? What?
Chet, you said they could have them.
Actually, I mean, unless somebody wants them, I'd say take them and use them effectively wherever you need to go.
But maybe.
I think that same speech elsewhere may help. That was very
This one from John Ewing is telling. And VTrans says we don't care.
Contact the governor. He's big on direction.
Yeah, well, I should.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you very much, everyone who came to speak to this tonight, and for all your organizing work. Could you pass this down just to clear my area if you want to go? Okay, I think we're moving to item number 7. So, Chip Stearns from NEMRIC is with us tonight. For those who aren't aware, I'm not sure anybody in the room is unaware, but just to state the obvious, we signed a contract with NEMRIC back in April, I believe it was. Chip has worked with us diligently through many months. I will not try and summarize all of his work because it's been quite dramatic. And it's been, I think, 2 months since we've had an update, which is longer than we prefer to go. So the way we want to handle this tonight is we're going to ask Chip. Thank you, Frank. We're going to ask Chip to review the balance sheets and the budget to actuals and make any points that he'd like to make. Then we're going to do a budget presentation starting with a conversation about the water and sewer budgets, which you have not yet seen. Then we'll have a conversation about the debt service schedule that Carrie has created and the capital expenses document. And then we'll look at the big picture and answer any questions about the content of the big picture, which is to say, I don't expect us tonight to try and get into line by lines, but I do expect if people have questions about, well, what went into that line, can you help me understand? This would be a great time. So we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then finally, before we're finished tonight, and before Chip leaves us, we're going to move on to item 9, which is some specific work around the credit card policy that Carter's committee has done. Okay? So let's start with Chip. The floor is yours, my friend.
All right. Who's going to share the document? Me?
Yes, please.
That's a yes from Carter, if you're willing.
I got it.
All right.
I'm going to find it.
He's a little quiet. This Is he a little quiet too?
Yeah, okay. Chip, while you're looking, can you speak a little more? We just want to make sure we got the sound right here.
Yes, it is I. Please let me come.
Okay, wait, let me adjust up.
Okay, we're going to adjust up a little bit.
Waiting. Increase.
Yeah. Okay, I think that should do it.
Confused.
Or put him on the owl as the sound.
It is on the owl.
Confused for now.
Yeah, it's definitely
okay. So I'm starting with
That's fine, yeah.
That'll be fine. If you speak like that, we can all hear.
Yell at us.
recent that we have, and it actually looks better today than it did on Friday when I printed it. This is the interfund balance report. Sums to zero, says who owes who, if you will, in summary. And if you recall back in May, when you first saw one of these things, we had $1 million values in water sewer showing owed to the general fund. The water sewer payments for the quarter were due today. And so the numbers today, at the end of today, are actually better than this. But as of Friday, the sewer fund sits in a position of owing the general fund $166,000, but the water fund is owed $57,000.
Can we make it any bigger, Chip?
So we are in a positive mode for the first time in I don't know how long, in which the general fund checkbook is actually holding money on behalf of water. All we gotta do is make next week's payroll and that'll all probably change. That's the first one I wanted you to see.
Okay, we're gonna try, hold on, Chip. Hold on just a second. We're trying to make it bigger on our end. Just a second.
Try to make it bigger.
We got it. Carter's doing it.
We're good. Ooh, yeah.
Okay, now that's a little better.
That's up Friday. And as of Friday, we had a little over $3.5 million in cash in the general fund checkbook. The only big obligation against that right now is about $500,000 for a tax anticipation note, which is the remaining value since we got our $1.3 million loan for deficit recovery. Current taxes I just tied out for the receivable. You've had 2 payments and you have 2 left to go. $5 million to collect. I want to point out the allowance for uncollectible that shows $545,000 as a number. We are down to under $250,000 in delinquent taxes to collect. I think the only action taken was people came in to pay their taxes and the clerk treasurer's office said, hey, by the way, did you know you owed last year? And people paid. Miscellaneous receivable is things outside of taxes, water and sewer. 146 still yet to be collected. I think a bulk of that is grant reimbursements that have been requested through PD. Tax anticipation. You can see there on the top line, just under liabilities, $500,000 still owed to the bank for tax anticipation note. It's been discussed but not yet determined if we simply should pay that off at this point because we may run into the need for the cash again. In the bottom half, there is the NPP, City School District. That is 1/2 of the taxes owed to the 3 different schools because we have already made 2 payments to the schools based on our taxes being collected. This would indicate that if we had to pay them now, we actually have the money in the bank. That's kind of odd. I am setting up right now, while I was waiting, the additional funds for these deferred revenues for reappraisal, records preservation, Walmart. I just set those funds up tonight while I was waiting, and we'll be making entries to introduce carrying values into their own funds for those monies for reporting. They will then appear on that first report that I showed of interfund balances. And therefore, we will be able to distinctly see how much money is left in reserves for Walmart records preservation and reappraisal, along with the highway equipment, police equipment, highway paving, fire equipment, and one other one that I just created. And as we move forward, these numbers will appear in the due to from report that I first showed as we rebuild our reserves, so they will no longer be reported to the board, the council on a spreadsheet form. They'll actually be part of the financials. The general fund right now looks very healthy because we are on an accrual basis, $4.4 million surplus this year. And again, most of that's because we have $5 million in taxes yet to collect. And on an accrual basis, you get credit for the revenue even though you haven't collected it yet. We move into the next fund, which is mooring management. Nothing has changed there, because I'm pretty sure the boats aren't moving in the water in the last couple of months. Project fund held that $17 for over 10 years. We got rid of it, brought it back into the general fund. East Main Street Cemetery, remind you again that it's been mowed and it's been paid for with taxpayers' money. And this fund owes the general fund $23,000 and has no possible way to gain $23,000 in revenue to be able to pay the general fund back. So at some point in time, I'm probably going to ask you to supply this fund with an accounting move, not dollars, but an accounting move to give this fund credit and then request that you budget to mow the cemetery out of general fund moving forward.
Chip, on that, I think I saw something like that in the budget.
Curly Niles.
Chip, hey Chip, hold on. Chip.
Oh, he can't hear us. It's not.
There were,
Are you muted?
No, we're not.
Fees paid by the general fund for $60 for some service. And I just think that the money hasn't been cashed out, if you will, and returned to the general fund. Insignificant in amount. CDBG had excess money that the council voted to move back to the general fund. So there's no more activity in this. What ran through this were those housing development CDBG loans from years ago that the audit states are due in 2032 and 2034. Public safety, all to do with police grants, the Justice, Treasury, and Stone Garden funds sit out here. They're under the control of Travis Bingham, and I think Stone Garden is still ongoing. So nothing much has changed. Recreation fund. Funds raised by the Recreation Committee for purposes that they want to use them. Presently, we sit like we have, I think, the last couple of months, with a little over $1,200 spent out of the general fund that hasn't been reimbursed by the committee. So I think that there's just an analysis to be done by the committee to decide where they're going to reimburse the general fund from. One of these, money market for Babe Ruth project, is really what we've got. The big deals. Sewer fees receivable. This was as of Friday, 3/12/437.19. And again, at the bottom of the asset list is the due to from for 166 owed to the general fund. And as of today, that number is just over 100,000, with 245,000 yet to be collected. Again, today was the due date for the water sewer bills. So I do have that sheet right there. So as of now, today, that's our value for receivables and our due to and from, 99. So when they say, what a difference a day makes, well, yeah, when it's the due date. And then, water fund. Nope, go back here, we're our balance sheet, water fund. $209 with 57, that was as of Friday. As of today, after the due date, 165 to be collected and 100,000 in the general fund checkbook that's being held for the water service.
Wow, that's huge.
Yes, it is.
So, if you recall, 6 months ago, the conversation we were having was a whole lot different. And as of today, this is the interfund balances. And you can see that the general fund nets that it owes $30,000 out. And so water and sewer are just about even. One owes us and the other one we owe. So our strategic plan of closing cash accounts, getting voter-approved debt to cover the practices of the past has brought us to where we're now in a manageable condition with day-to-day activities. Then I'm going to move on to the budget status as of Friday. One of the first things to notice, this is again suppressed to headers, so it's a lot easier to digest. You will see in the fourth line down, other interest income, $1.3 million. Can you guess where that came from? That's the cash that came in for the money we borrowed for deficit recovery. The general fund has to call that income, and then when you move to accrual, it'll move to the balance sheet for the financial statements and the audit. But that's another reason why you're seeing a surplus in revenue over expenditures. We have to treat that as income. As well, down a few lines where you look at the fire department income, 32,000 budgeted, and we got 908,000. Well, that's the value of the lease to buy the fire truck over time. And so both the, I think 865,000 came in and went back out through the budget status because it's a general fund process and not an enterprise fund. So overall, in the revenue stream, just for general fund, 7.8 budgeted, 9.2 thus far collected. We are, based on December 12th date, we are 45% through our fiscal year. So numbers that land around 45% are on target. But again, that's not to say that there are lines that shouldn't be more than that or less than that because of their cycle of payments. We'll move into the expenditures, general government. Those are the accounts that begin in 007. Went by it. So all of the general fund, which used to be Fund 0, is now Fund 00, used to take 13 pages to give to you in summary format. It is now down to 2 pages. much easier to digest, simpler in the way it's broken down. For example, government operations represents all activity that takes place in City Hall with the exception of the police department. The police department has its own group. So the City Hall, less the police department's total budget is $976,762.21. And our expenses to date are $384,156.40, or 39.33%. And we know positions that have not been filled, whose salaries have not been used, is the main reason why we are under in government operations. The next group, public safety. Just want to make sure you guys can see it. What about it? Police department, broken down into 3 subtotals. This before was probably 8 subtotals. PD salaries and benefits, 2.270 for a budget, 1.176 year to date, 51.83% of budgets for salaries and benefits. PD operations is at 71% spent, 136,650 against 97,000 spent. And PD equipment, 72.5 with 29,000 spent. And overall for the department, 52.56 spent. Things to consider. In the PD, we do not budget Stone Garden costs against Stone Garden revenue. So we have the cost of Stone Garden in these numbers, and on the revenue side, we also bring in money that's unbudgeted as reimbursements. So when PD is over in salaries and benefits, it's likely they also have income that was unanticipated that you got. Fire department broken down into 4 categories: salaries and benefits, operations, equipment, and fire station. Total budget, $446,848.63, spent 106, or they're at 43%. Overall, that's under 45. So that looks good. Public Works, radically changed. Again, 4 categories. This used to be about 8 categories. Salaries and benefits, 884, 780, 54. Against 381 spent, or 43.06% of the budget. Again, the target 45. Operations, 204, 350 with 82 spent, under 45. Equipment, 207, 700 with 102 spent, 49% of budget. And maintenance, which is street maintenance, 235, 350 with 96, 885 spent, or 41%. Overall, public works, 1,532 with 662 spent, or 43.25% of budget. Again, under 45. Moving into recreation. Recreation was left very much intact when we converted the chart, because there are really geographic locations for the services provided by the city. And those services relate to season, so it's not surprising that recreation would be over the 45% at this time of year. But I'm guessing in January and February that a lot of the outdoor activities are not going to be in there, such as camping and expense for camping. And so their numbers right now are at 54, 65 overall budget to actual within that department. The next groups each seem to have individual lines, so their total is what it is, there is no subtotal on it. Conservation and developments is 68%. The conservation project, not even sure what it is, but $619 against the $7 million budget, I'm not worried. Health and welfare, 32,000, 13,000 spent. Then we jump into the debt service area. Debt service is a odd area in that depending upon what your loan requirements are, we are paying some of our debts on a monthly basis, and some are on cycle of interest twice a year, principal once a year. So where we are within debts, 63%, but unless you know the breakdown, more than likely there are loan obligations that were due in December as an initial payment of principal. Within these numbers, I believe we've already made our first payment towards the fire truck. Couple improvements. 797 budgeted, but $1.3 million spent. That is where our fire truck is for the purchase. And then the debt service area is where our principal payment to the municipal leasing company was made. And appropriations are typically not paid out until your final due date of taxes has been collected. And that's why there's so little in appropriations. I believe the 18,000 that's there is related to the recycling, 49,000 that was voted and approved by the voters to spend on keeping the recycling system going. In a nutshell, that is your tax fund.
Gosh.
Not only funds.
Council members, do you have questions for Chip?
You actually answered it. I have a few things highlighted and you answered them. Like the fire truck purchase was the most recent one, but.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. We've been working too much together, Chip. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, and I'm supposed to know what to anticipate for questions.
Oh, yeah, yes.
All right, I'll move on.
Hold on, Chip, I want to stop there for just a second. Are there any questions or comments people want to make about this much of the report from Chip before we move on?
I have one question.
Mhm.
Did we buy or lease the fire truck?
Fire truck is technically leased over 10 years.
And so at the end of the 10-year period, we're going to turn it back to the...
No, at the end of the 10 years, they're going to turn it over to us for $1. It's just, it acts like a loan, but it's called a lease.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yep. And we took the hit on the first debt payment now because over the life of the 10-year note, it will save the city about $50,000 to have made an early payment just 2 months in.
You know, the note length is 9 years, 2 months instead of 10 years.
Okay, Chip, I think we're ready to move on. Go ahead.
All right. The next fund is quite simple. Project fund. We moved $17. It still looks like we moved $17. Nothing's changed. The East Main Street, brought in 10 and spent 3 to mow. And the 3 that we spent to mow, I'm quite sure was paid by the general fund. Early S. Niles, money in, money out. There's no cross-fund entries except the $60. Niles fund other expense you can see there. CDBG funds. And Until we close all these bank accounts, to consolidate cash, there are a few of them that made a little bit of interest. And we're gonna look at that all year long as being the net of the activity to this fund. Public safety funds. All we've done here is gained interest, and I guess the federal government, we bought something. Travis bought something for $61.54 out of the Justice Fund. And then there were surplus monies in those accounts that were owed to the general fund. And we reimbursed the general fund for that activity. I believe most of that was activity for Stone Garden reimbursements got posted into this fund instead of being posted into the general fund at the time. Most of Stone Garden reimbursements are reimbursements for services provided by PD in the general fund. Recreation truck. That number might be familiar. It's $1,672.96, I think from a boot drop out in the middle of the street, Main Street. We got deposited. And some trust interest income. They spent a little on some event, $142.50, and other expenditures for $228. And so ultimately, between what came in and they ended the year last year owing the general fund money, and it just hasn't been resolved yet, paying them back. So overall this year, they gained $1,300, but they still owe the general fund $1,200. There is a nutshell of the sewer fund. The sewer department budgeted income, $1,007,000. Billed to date, $975,000, 56%. We've had 2 billings this year, and our second due date was just today. And at the end of today, we have $245,000 yet to collect in sewer fees. I think the sewer and water task force has diligently been working on analyzing the budget to actuals and coming up with rate changes as necessary in order to meet the obligations of this fund and the water fund. And we seem to be adequately on track for that to happen by the end of this fiscal year to remain in a positive condition with cash. May not be a lot of it, but it's going to be better than owing the general fund $1.7 million. And we're into the summary of water. This one looks even better. $1,155,000 budgeted income. We billed $835,000. However, I think that the budget, when it was developed, didn't anticipate the indebtedness that we've been having to pay, and we continue billing for the water tower construction. The bond anticipation note that we got, that we're hoping to convert to an actual Vermont Bond Bank bond for a number of years. This fund is also right now tasking with buying and installing water meters at as rapid a rate as we can get it done. And so when you're looking at some of these numbers and you're saying capital expenditures, $38,000 budgeted, we got $329,000 spent. That is water meter project happening now and rapidly, and I would anticipate only more water meters being purchased and continuing to be installed as much as the operators can get in there and do it. And at this point, that's the end of the funds you had on Friday.
Questions for Chip? So Chip, this might be as good a place as any to give a quick summary on where we are with the Vermont Bond Bank. And let me run that and correct me if you think I'm off on it in some way. So, community members will remember that we sought approval in August to do a short-term loan of up to $3 million. I think we ended up at we said we were going to ask for approval to borrow up to $3 million and receive that approval short-term in anticipation of arranging a bond through the Vermont Bond Bank. Then we went to Pasumsic a couple of months later, and the final number that we actually asked for and received approval on from Pasumsic was $2.827 million. We didn't need and couldn't justify the full $3 million according to the language from the original warning back in 2022. Then then that bought us the time we needed, and we were told that we had a deadline of December 15th, today, to turn in an application to the Vermont Bond Bank to be considered in their bond pool, which could happen if everything goes smoothly, as early as the end of February or early March. And so Frank and Carrie put in a heck of a week this week between budget work and this, and we turned in an application for roughly $220,000 less than we had asked the Pasumsic Bank for. So just to be clear, the Pasumsic Bank note is being treated something like a line of credit. We have not taken the entire $2.827 million. We've only taken the money we needed immediately to pay off the construction line of credit, which was right around $1.9 million, right, Frank?
Correct.
So there's still actually another $1 million we could borrow in there if need be. We've actually spent some of that money. We've just been spending it out of the general fund so as not to incur further interest needlessly. But when it came time to actually figure out how much money we wanted to borrow over 25 years from the Vermont Bond Bank, the calculation that we made was to take the total cost of the project, which came in roughly $600,000 less than was projected. So the water tower project came in at help me, Frank, remember?
4.3 million.
Yeah, roughly 4.3 million instead of over 4.9 million. Then the question is, what do we do with that? Do we borrow the full allowance? And we looked at how many water meters we've installed to date, how many we expect we will still install, and we made an estimate of that. And if you add up the final cost of the water project, which we are pretty close to knowing straight on right now, and the cost of any water meter installations we've done this year to date, minus the $50,000 we budgeted in our budget for this year. So we'll spend that money, that $50,000, out of our budget and not borrow money for it long term. Thank you, Ann, for your help with that. Then the remainder of what we wanted to borrow was enough to buy another 400 water meters, basically. So when you get all done, the math is that we came out with a request to the Vermont Bond Bank for $2,603,000, I believe, which is roughly $225,000 less than we had approval to borrow. And that's what was submitted on Friday at noon to the Vermont Bond Bank. And Frank had a conversation with Ken Lingy from the Bond Bank this morning, or this afternoon, who reflected that the application looked solid and he didn't have any immediate questions. So if all goes well, that Bond Bank note will be considered by their board before the end of January. We'll know in early to mid-February if we are going to be able to be considered in the first round of their bond pool in calendar year 2026. And if so, the money should be arranged hopefully by early spring, and we'll pay off the short-term note from Pasumsic Bank in anticipation of bond income. So, Chip, you want to add anything to any of that?
Yeah, the only thing you didn't mention was how you got the number reduced was the use of grants in kind and ARPA money. Reduced the amount that we had to actually borrow, because that's the way the article passed. Here's a total less any grants that you can get. And so you drop down from, 4.3, you drop down to the 2.6 because we had grants and in-kind.
Which also was how the original warning was written in 2022. It said that we were permitted to borrow, I think it was up to $4.985 million minus
Right.
any public support we could receive.
Right.
Okay.
Otherwise, it doesn't math, kind of thing.
But this makes the math. Chip and Frank had a great time going back and forth trying to figure out how to make the math on this one. So, anything you want to add, Carter? You were involved in a lot of these conversations too.
Yeah, I just would say there was definitely a resounding chorus within the financial task force that we only borrow what we really need. I think there was a lot of trust and that the public lent, and we wanted to be respectful and really I think a lot of work with the office folks here. I cannot praise you enough for really doing your due diligence. We'll talk about the debt schedule in a little bit, but there's just a lot of numbers that we had assumed from spreadsheets in the past, but having those real numbers and getting the real actual for the request from the bond bank was huge. And so yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know, Lori.
Yes, to all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions on Chip's report? I'm loving the new streamlined version, the skinny version of your report, Chip. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So
That was the plan.
So I had a couple questions. So number one, you had said that the approval was for 300,000. You're borrowing just over
3 million.
I'd be 3 million. You're borrowing just over 2,600,000.
Yeah.
Then you said it was like $200,000 less than what you were approved to do, but that's $200,000 less than what you went to Pasumpic for.
Correct.
You're actually $400,000 less than what you were approved.
In August, that's correct.
Okay. The next question. So some of the money that is in this $2,600,000 is anticipated installation of water meters. What happens if residents refuse? And let's say instead of 500 meters being installed, it's only 300 meters that are installed. Are you actually going to go out and buy the water meters prior to the residents agreeing to have them installed?
No, because water meters have a shelf life. So we will buy the meters as we need them over the next, hopefully, a year.
Okay.
Less than a year.
And if not all the residents agree, what is going to happen to that money then?
Well, we haven't gotten there, but the Water and Sewer Task Force is having a conversation about carrot and stick approaches, because at the end of the day, there really isn't a choice. Just to be clear, the only thing that would excuse someone from putting one in would be a decision by the Water and Sewer Task Force with a recommendation to council that we have a situation that is so expensive to install a water meter that it's not appropriate or cost effective to do it. Shy of that, and there are a few instances that we already know of where we are likely to have that kind of situation, but it shouldn't be more than a few dozen installations overall. The goal at the end of the day is, in order to have a solid water and sewer budget and to be able to project how we go after the income for that, everybody's got to participate.
And I understand, but you also are using the term goal. And I'm not sure if you can extort residents into allowing a water meter to be put into their home. I mean, yes, carrot and stick. You could make it so expensive not to do it that they...
At the end of the day, that's what's going to have to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know when, but there will come a time when if someone says, it's possible to put a water meter in here and we're just not going to cooperate, then the rate that they're paying for a non-metered account, I suspect, is going to go pretty high.
Okay.
In addition to that, Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you reduce the number that from what you expected to compensate for the fact that there'd be people that, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's already been worked into it a little bit.
Yeah, we think that there are still 480 meters. There's a little bit of flux in that number. We're still trying to narrow it down.
500, plus or minus.
Somewhere around 500 meters that still need to be installed. We made 400 the amount that we're borrowing for on the assumption that some of them are going to be never installed because there's a problem with the installation. Some of them are going to be so problematic it's going to take more time, and it didn't make sense to borrow money for 25 years on an installation that may take us several years. So we'll have to deal with those odd cases when we get a little further down the road.
Okay.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Question I have from our last task force meeting that probably has already been answered, but this is a bond, so there's no option to pay it back early, right?
That's right. Yeah, once you borrow money on a bond, you're committed to it. And we don't know the interest rate yet. I'll just head that question off. It's going to be somewhere probably between 4 and 4.5%. Okay. Chip, anything else about this, or can we move on to the water and sewer budgets?
Sure. Budgets.
Okay. So I'm going to invite Tom and Carrie to come up and join me at this end of the table. And just so everybody can keep up, we are moving on to item number 8 on the agenda, with great thanks to Chip Stearns for all of his work and to the finance team for all of their consideration. Just pull up a little bit. We just didn't want you with their backs to everybody in the room. So in your packet, if you were really diligent in the middle of that almost 200-page packet, you could have found a water budget and a sewer budget that Carrie and Tom have been working on. And I'll just let the two, do you have any comments you want to make to set us up for this conversation? Tom?
I mean, just like our general fund budget, it's been a little bit of a challenge. I mean, putting everything together, I think it is going to simplify it. But looking at it, I guess both water and sewer, if you want to look at, let me just look at the first one here. So under water distribution, you've got water distribution, you got water and treatment and pumping. So, and then on the sewer side, you've got sewer collection and sewer plant. So under sewer plant and under treatment and pumping of water, that's my 4 guys that are solely just water and sewer. Everybody else under water distribution and water admin, you're going to see a number there, but that's going to be billed out after. Actually, all them salaries have been brought back into the general fund. And that'd be the same case with the sewer department, excluding those 4 employees that's all they do. They run the wastewater plant and the water treatment facility. Other than that, I mean, the budget, things have been condensed. If you had specific questions, I'm sure we could answer them for you. Probably some of the big ticket items, really, if you look at under what I would have called capital, have all been put into one main budget of, correct me, Carrie, if I'm wrong. You know, I'm looking at it's under debt service.
Right before the flood for water.
Yeah, so under the capital reserve, excuse me. 5% capital reserve. So under that, everything is put into that. 128,000 is the Vector Fund. There's monies for a water project on streets, and then a pickup that's shared 3 ways: Public Works, water, and sewer. So again, just to mention, normally we would have had them broken out, but as we've condensed everything's put into a lump sum. So if there's a big number sitting there and you have a question about it, please feel free to ask what might be within that line item. Other than that, it's the same as the general fund. We've condensed everything together. I think we're pretty conservative with the water and sewer budget. Anybody's got any questions about it?
Questions on council?
I should have been here rather than there, I'm sorry. So the water meters, I counted
I did make myself a note, I will say, and Patrick probably would remember this, and I haven't got it. Under the water fund, I haven't put any funds. The task force had requested that we look into a leak detection around the city of Newport, and I haven't put anything in there. I don't have any definitive number to establish. I would assume it's going to be a significant number, unless the last time we did one, we did it through a grant, which I'd like to pursue, but I haven't put any numbers in there for that at this point.
And we'll look at the capital improvements line as well in a few minutes here. Kind of how we're beginning to try and think about capital improvements.
What's in the water line and engineering and design line? It says 2014 is the line. Because there are some expenses that came up this year, but I also know that.
So everything right now, any of my, the water tower engineering design would be going to that?
Okay.
Yes. There may be some funds, we have our name in for SRF funding for Sias Avenue, so maybe down the road, and there might be a small amount of money that may get put there from engineering for helping us with the process. Most of that's the water tower.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ann.
I want to focus on some of the ones that I think are biggest and confusing to me. In both water and sewer, a line which has never been filled out ever, but once when Laura Dolgan made a mistake, is the line on depreciation. So in the water system budget, this would be line 2059. There's an actuals for depreciation of $253,723. It's my understanding that depreciation plays no part, should not appear basically in the budget. Budget is cash in and cash out. Depreciation is a non-cash item. It's never been included in any budget, general fund, water or sewer. It is compensated for the depreciation in trucks. You get a loan. The depreciation with regard to buildings, it's covered by repairs. It's covered by capital expenses. If you need a new truck, it's in there. You don't put depreciation in, it's like double charging. And if depreciation was used somehow, which I do not believe the Water and Sewer Committee included, that would have raised our rates significantly by $253,000 in the water, and I think another, if I get to the sewer, $420,789 in line 1903. So I am, and in that line, you also have it in the proposed budget. It says $114,620. At least in the other one, the water one, there was nothing there for the proposed budget. So depreciation does not belong. There are people in the audience who know it much better than I do. I hope we didn't include depreciation when we calculated the water and sewer rates, because that would have upped the rates by a significant amount of money, and it doesn't belong there. That's one comment.
Okay, let's stop there. And Chip, I'm going to ask if you have anything you want to say in response to that.
So, depreciation is typically offset because of entries made for principal payments on loans. At the end of a given year, the principal payments in enterprise funds get set back to zero and the liability line gets reduced at fiscal year end. And when there's a difference between what is going to be adjusted in the liabilities versus what's going to be booked as a depreciation expense, the difference between the principal payments out and the estimated total depreciation can be budgeted as a number in depreciation, so that when depreciation is booked and the principals are adjusted off, your budget to actuals fall in line.
Okay, here's what I'm going to suggest, because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole tonight. We got plenty of time to talk about this. We note that there's a question here, and we'll ask the finance, and actually water and sewer will want to have a conversation about this as well, to come back with a clear explanation that is helpful to everybody and that makes sense. I don't want to go there tonight, Jennifer.
No. You want to hear what I say. The other thing, seriously, I'm not here to stick pigs. You also want to take a look at the statutes, because the statutes dictate what you can and can't do.
So we will, okay, so that one is noted. And do you have other questions you want to put on the table tonight?
Yeah, the second largest thing that I wanted to talk about, and I would put a bunch of duties of water commissioners and the state statute on it, and the creation of the reserve fund parts that are addressed by the 2 pages that all of you need to sort of get a copy of and look at. And I wanted to give them to the water and sewer committees last week, but I somehow didn't know that it was meeting. So there's a bunch of them. Please take them, and I made enough for the audience as well. This talks about the 5% reserve, capital reserve, and I've mentioned it before, that when you made a commitment per statute, it says that the way that you are allowed to take monies from the rate holders when we pay our rates and put it away so that you can meet capital commitments down the line, is that you're entitled to take between all the way up to 15%, and we decided to take 5%. And so that money is the capital fund that you see that we've created. But it requires certain things that I really like. It requires that you specify what the fund is going to be used for. And maybe you can specify it broadly, I don't know. But it says that you have to go to the voters to create the fund. You must go to the voters and ask them if they agree that the fund can be created. And that should be done by a warning, and that's in section 2804. And then once that fund is created, the money has to go into it. That 5% has to go into it. And in addition, it says, the part that I like, is that you can't take out the money for another purpose. If you say you wanted it for water meters, or you wanted it for capital expenditures, if you could get that broad, you can't take it out to pay debt service or something other, or just regular operation costs, unless you get permission by a vote from the voters. I briefly looked through, for another purpose, every warning that we've had from 1917 when we were formed until now. I could be wrong, but I saw no warning that said, we'll set up one of these funds. So you've had sinking funds. I don't know how they were created. They were probably created because nobody ever looked at the state statute and what it required for a capital sinking fund, whatever you want to call the fund. But I believe you never created one. And that may have been a good thing because we sucked money out of those funds willy-nilly without ever asking the voters' permission. But I think that was because we never had one of these proper reserve funds. So I think you need to read the statute. We need to figure out what a warning is that could go to the public with regard to it. We need to be sure that the 5% is in there before you ask, as you have again, that monies be put into a reserve fund for next year in the proposed budget. If you don't intend to put the money in, fine. Don't put it in the budget. If you do intend to put the money in, we need a fund created by the people which can't be used for any other purpose than what it said unless you get permission from us to use it for that. So I think something needs to be done with that.
Jennifer, you want a quick comment, and then I'm gonna ask you to keep your
Yeah.
comments brief, Ann, okay?
So I'm doing this from recollection, and this is where you're going to need Mr. Manette to step in and really do a microscopic reading of the water and sewer statutes, because I actually think they changed in July. But based on pre-July language, the statutes did not require voter approval. The statute said you could do something up, I think it was to like 10 or 15%. And there was no language about voter approval on that. It might be in the general fund for capital improvements you need voter approval, but specific to the water and sewer statutes, I have no recollection of necessity of voter approval. But there were confines within which you had to work in terms of percentages and things of that nature. And they did need to be set aside and identified for a specific purpose.
Okay, we're gonna take that question
Yep.
and work on it. I've got it listed here.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Is it critical tonight, Lori, or is it just,
Well,
I don't wanna argue it tonight.
No argument.
Go ahead.
Different topic. Several months ago, we had the gentleman from the sewer plant here, and it was brought up that I believe it's next year that the plant goes under an engineering review. Is any of that in consideration within this budget?
Tom?
No, currently, we're doing an evaluation of the plant, but which may lead to a design to a 20-year upgrade to the plant. Then we probably would.
That's when we'll start talking about it.
Okay, thank you.
Ann, do you have anything else on your list?
In big bucket terms, I want to know where the salaries are going that water and sewer will be charged.
We
What
can answer that
percentages?
right now for you. Ready?
Fine.
Here we go.
Here we go.
There are 4 full-time employees in water and sewer. They are allocated 80% to sewer, 20% to water. Got that right?
Correct.
There are 3 employees in Public Works whose time is shared between water, sewer, and Public Works. They are currently all budgeted in the general fund. And then, Tom, do you know what percentage you used for those? Actually, this demands a little bit background first. There is the system that we're creating with Chip's help is that all of the full salaries that used to be allocated across funds are being allocated in general fund only. And then we will estimate using percentage to start the process, and then we'll, in some instances, if it's a payroll employee with a timesheet, we'll be able to see what actually happens. We'll estimate what the general fund will charge the water fund and the sewer fund for the services that are being provided by the general fund. So, Tom, do you know the answer to the question about those 3?
Yeah, so 40% was for Public Works and 30 and 30 for water and sewer.
So
my salary was split 3 ways.
Evenly.
Evenly.
Yeah, so Tom's salary is 33% in each of those 3. 30. It's all going into general fund. This is new and different. And then there will be a line. Carrie, can you help me with where that line is when we budget to charge those 2 funds for their services provided by the general fund?
Yeah, there's under water distribution, salaries and benefits, DPW interfund transfer, it gets cut off. There's those 4 that are the 30-30. And then under Water Department Administration, the salaries.
Can
and
you reference it
benefits.
by number, Carrie, to help people find it?
1957.
Yeah, if you look at row 1957 is the DPW one, and then 1975 is the admin one, and Tom is in that admin one, along with city manager office. And in the case of water, no clerk or treasurer time.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the first answer to the question. That gets you Tom and the 3 DPW employees that work for Tom. Okay, then Carrie's salary and the future city manager's salary have been allocated 12.5% each of those salaries to water and 12.5% to sewer to start. And those might change from year to year depending on whether or not we're headed into a massive upgrade on the wastewater treatment facility, for instance, right? That will demand more time. So that's the 2 of those salaries. And then finally, the salaries downstairs in Jim's office, at the moment, in this budget, allocate 25% to, which one are we allowed to do, Jim?
Sewer, you can't do the treasurer.
Yeah, to sewer, and nothing to water. If the charter were to change and allow it, another 25% would go to water. So right now, we're assuming that half the work in this budget is actually being used, from that office is actually going to water and sewer. But we're only billing for 25% of it, or 25 total percent. I think I've hit them all. Have I missed any, Carrie, that you know of?
I mean, I can give the line numbers for sewer if anyone wants them.
But those are the only allocation questions for salaries, I think.
Okay, and that's with respect to the budget, and I understand Tom's percentage will be a percentage, finance will be a percentage, but historically, when it came to actual payouts, of the 3 people that Tom allocated, that isn't how we actually determined what their salaries were going to be. Well, we allocated this in the budget, and then they turned in timesheets.
Yes,
And the
that will still happen.
timesheet determined how much of it actually was going to be.
That's correct.
Okay.
For those 3. All the others, then those are the distinction I was making early on. Those are the ones who are salaried employees, right? I'm not salaried, I'm sorry, who are hourly employees. For the salaried employees, at least to start the process, we're just going to make our best guess by percentage. Jennifer, did you have a question or comment?
So, in reference to the 3 employees, there was some really funky thing that was going on in the past where all of their benefits were allocated to like water and sewer, but only part of their wages were.
No, so just to be clear, this is a calculation Carrie has done with a great deal of care.
Yeah.
It covers all benefits, and what's the one thing it doesn't
It
cover?
doesn't cover unemployment insurance or one other one that was pretty much impossible to break out.
Okay.
The person.
But
in general, if we're figuring a salary percentage, we're also figuring the related benefits cost as well.
So you're prorating
All of it.
appropriately
Correct.
to the best of your, your ability for those people all across the board.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
Any other questions, Sam, you want to ask about the water and sewer budgets?
I'll pass it for a moment so that I can get the little itty bitty things and think whether or not
Yeah,
it's
so
worth it.
let me be clear. We welcome, if you have a list of questions, it would be really helpful to the finance team, to Carrie, to our department heads, on at any level, water, sewer, and general fund. If you have specific questions, please write them down and present them so that we can go through them line by line and not rehearse all of them this way, okay? And tonight, the goal was just to say, in general, here's what's going on. And we really welcome your attention to this, and we've got plenty of time to take it into consideration. Okay. Anything else on the water and sewer budgets in particular? Council members, anything you all want to ask? All right, then I think what we're going to do is release you, Tom, and Carrie, why don't you stay here and walk us, you and Chip can walk us through the debt schedule and what that is all about. Chip, you're still with us, right?
Yes.
Don't leave us, Chip.
We're excited.
Carrie made me promise that you would have her back for this.
So, So one of the things I'm sure I would have mentioned early on, when we first started, I said, I don't know how you guys know what the hell you owe anybody, you don't have a debt schedule. The auditors give you your debt schedule. So we definitely worked on, pretty early on, starting to track the what we owe part of our balance sheets. And this became quite eye-opening.
So do you want to walk us through that, Chip, or do you want Carrie to do it?
Carrie can. She's most familiar with the spreadsheet.
And I'll just say, Carrie has hours invested in trying to track down all these loans that people didn't even know about. Like they were being paid, but nobody knew where the documentation was. So we've tracked it all down. I think we can say all of it, right, Carrie? Less than somebody in the room can come up with something we're not thinking of.
Just because the
It's a bad
copies
copy,
didn't print very well, can you
The
tell us
first
what all the
column-
column headings and
Yeah.
the faint boxes?
Interest / fees on the first column, principal on the second column, additions on the third column, which I also have a parenthetical saying remaining principal balance from prior year / or full principal for new loans,
Okay.
deletions, and then parenthetical says amount paid towards principal, and then the ending balance June 30th, 2027. So what will still owe to the principal at the end of the fiscal year of FY27.
Great, thanks.
And then these are all, the first section is the general fund loans. You can see a couple of these will be done in FY27, which will be nice. The SCBA will be done, and one of the police cruisers will be done. Then we have the sewer fund, which actually that revolving loan 075 is the one that we just paid on.
Okay.
So you can see we're paying a little less next year, I guess, or no, maybe about the same, but, and then we have that bottom one on the sewer fund is the new Pasumsic loan. And then the water fund, 2 revolving loan funds, and then that bottom one on the water fund is what we're hoping to convert to a bond early spring.
Are there questions, council members, about? One thing I should say is that we've asked Travis in his budget for next year to budget a capital expense for the full cost of a cruiser, with the goal of not borrowing any more money for the rotation of police cruisers that we've been doing every year. So we're trying to get ourselves weaned off of using credit to make those purchases.
I think I asked this once before, and the data wasn't available at the time, but do we know what our total debt cost is at this time? I'm sorry, the cost of the, total debt that we have.
It should be, I mean, for the end of FY27, it would be the sum of the right column, the most right column.
This sum, that's the,
That's the
the balance.
principal, but that doesn't include interest.
Okay.
But you're asking for what we pay in interest every year total on our debt?
No, I was asking really how much debt we have. You know, like, there's a debt limit. I claim there's a debt limit in the old charter. There's a debt limit certainly in the new charter if you go through to the state statute.
Yep.
So I
So
would
yes, that
be
final
interested in
column.
knowing, it's just the total of the final column.
Would be the total principal we owe by the end of FY27.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one caveat, if you're adding the far right column, is you have to move those.
The bonds.
You have to move the very bottom line over, the 2827, or whatever that net figure ends up coming out being, because it says 0.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh, good
understand,
point.
John.
Because it'll be gone. We'll have a bond in place of it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, at the very bottom, and,
yeah.
right, that's the Pasumsic Savings Short-Term Loan in Anticipation of Bond Income. And it's gonna get paid off, we project, this year, and therefore it zeroes out. But it will be replaced with a Vermont Bond Bank note. So John's absolutely right, you have to count it.
2 million something.
$2.6, $2,603,000.
Got it.
Here you go.
Woohoo! I've been looking for that number for a long time. Okay. Any other questions about the debt schedule?
I mean, there's a couple questions that come up, but I also think I'm excited to discuss this with the financial task force on Wednesday morning, so I think I can wait until then. 8 a.m. people.
I cannot say enough about how important it has been to have Carrie's effort to make this happen.
Amen.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, Carrie, you want to talk to us about the capital improvements sheet that we got for folks?
Well, it might be better if Chip, I don't know.
Chip,
if
you want this
wanna
one?
talk through it, or
Bring it up.
Yep, Carter's got it up on our screen.
can you see it?
Yes.
Cool. So, I mean, I can start by saying, Chip, what we talked about is basically what I've done here, and just, I've reduced down to just one line per department. So looking at these lines, I didn't include the historical look at these lines because it's not valuable, because I'm reusing existing lines that were associated with like a singular police cost.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's why this is such a more limited view compared to every other document.
So the general concept in this type of budgeting method, where there is a total value in the general fund to commit for capital. In your last meeting, each one of these titles were approved to be set up as a reserve fund. And so the goal is to uniformly transfer annually to the reserve fund the same amount for police, fire, rec, public works. So that the submission into the reserve is flat and uniform year after year, and the spending out of the reserve can flow up or down according to what the plan is for purchasing with reserve funds. And so in some years, you may contribute, let's say to rec capital, you contribute 70, but the next year, you're actually only going to spend 40. And then the following year, you contribute 70, but you're going to be spending 100. And all you're trying to do is stabilize the tax rate with your capital purchasing plan. And so the departments were tasked with putting out the next 5 years or more of what their wishes were, and then trying to stabilize that to be a uniform amount for the next 5 years, knowing that the desire actually fluctuates up and down according to what they want to do. And I do distinctly recall the fire capital plan included replacing the tower. And the tower just, is a little bit more than $1 million, and so I don't see that number within the fire capital expense. That was one we tossed out very quickly and pushed it out a year so we can discuss what you're going to do about that. But that's the goal behind simplifying the general fund's contribution to the reserve, then making your purchases out of your reserve funds.
And I'll just add to that what you're not seeing is in the detail behind this is that it actually projects out 5 years total, goes out 5 years, and there's a column we created where we think and hope we might get grant funding to help with a particular kind of capital expense as opposed to needing to do it through tax income. And so all you're seeing here is the implication of kind of what we've narrowed it down to start for next year's conversation for, what are the things we absolutely really feel we have to put in here next year that will have tax implications. You're not seeing any of the rest of it.
So what this is attempting to do is Already, we've eliminated the reporting by spreadsheet for reserves that had no backing to them. To actually create the financial statements that not only show the numbers, but have the backing to say it's in a relationship with the general fund. The general fund cash account should hold all the reserves contained within it. And then those reserves are lined up in funds in the same to-from report that we keep looking at the beginning of every time we look at financials. We'll just simply, you'll see police capital reserve has a to-from with a value in it. And that's the condition it stands at between monies in and monies spent.
Council members?
Questions? Ann, go ahead.
We feel like we've been down this road before, so capital improvements can become a sort of slush fund, in that, you know, one year you put it in, or you put a little money in, or whatever, and then the next time you need some money and you don't have any money, you take all the money out of these capital improvement funds. And then you say, oh, well, we can't buy the truck that way. We'll have to buy the truck by taking a loan. But in the meantime, taxpayers' money that was committed in their minds to this sum of $937,000, and that we will have been taxed on it if this eventually is approved. We're thinking, well, we bought, you know, 2 fire something little cars and 3 police cars and whatever, because we paid for it, but then it's gone. And that happened over a 10-year period under one city manager's tenure. And so what can we do to ensure that the money that we put in those funds stays there?
So the difference was the presentation was done by a spreadsheet and had nothing to do with your financial reports. This is totally built into the financial reports, which on a monthly basis, City Council is looking at. And so when money is moved, added, spent, the bottom line is that one single first page I show every time we show the financials. The reserve fund has a due from. It's either positive or negative to say the money's there and the money's not there.
What about that term you use, value? The money disappears from the fund, but it still has a value of that sum of money, which means the money's not there. But it's owed that money. That doesn't help us either.
That's the condition we were in when we started in May. The general fund had $1 million in it, and you owed the bank $2.8 million.
I get it.
That was just general fund. So the whole concept of the committed fund, which was on a spreadsheet, wasn't presented anywhere in the financials. We're building a set of reserves in the financials that are reportable. Not by journal entry, not by entering a number in some spreadsheet and printing a spreadsheet and saying, this is what we have. It's got to be double entry in the accounting system. And if the money's gone, but the commitment's not, and I will use the Walmart fund right now as that example. We still have $386,000 committed for Walmart. But we ended up using $350 of that to pay the $2.8 million we owed in tax anticipation. So the commitment didn't go away, but in fact we had to use the cash in order to meet the obligation the city had made.
Is there a name we can give a fund that will make it truly restricted?
The name of the fund typically says what it's supposed to be used for.
I'm sorry?
The name of the fund typically states what it's supposed to be used for.
And the only way that it can be changed is by action of the council. That's the actions that we took all last spring to try and get ourselves back into a relatively healthy financial condition. Does that mean that it couldn't be abused by council or by a city manager? No, of course not. The only thing in my judgment, Ann, and I know it's not fully satisfying, and I get why, but the only answer to your question at the end of the day is to elect and hold accountable a city council and to hire staff who are being as fully transparent and giving the kind of reporting that we looked at tonight, and then asking questions when it begins to slide. There is no other answer to that.
But it didn't work before.
Believe me, when I tell you, I've been living with that reality for 8 months, 10 months, right? I know that. But the answer that I understand is less than satisfying is you do everything you can to bring the greatest possible level of transparency to the process. You make sure your numbers are solid, which has not been the case, and then you ask hard questions at every city council meeting once a month, at least, when you're looking at these things to say what's going on here. I wish I had a deadlock cinch, and I don't think there is one.
And you exercise your recall term in the new charter.
Right.
I think what Chip's saying is very pertinent, though, is that these numbers are on the books, not on a spreadsheet that's manipulated behind the scenes. Very important delineation, and will make this be able to be tracked through by even lay people with accounting skills.
So I'm not going to go there. I think we've said enough about it tonight, and I'm going to try and move us on because we haven't talked about the grand budget net, which is what's next here. Okay, so I want to say there too, thank you to all of the department heads who put a lot of work into this capital budget, the stuff that you can't see, in order for Carrie to be able to consolidate it down to something that makes sense and is actually reflected in next year's budget that we're working on. These numbers are in the budget and we're taking them seriously. Okay? So now, let's just talk for a few minutes about where we go from here. You've now had a chance to look department by department at all of our departments and all three of our funds, general, sewer, and water funds. We've looked at the debt schedule and we've looked at the capital expense projections. And what that leads to is the budget that we printed or published this week that we can try and answer some questions about, but I'll be honest, I don't want to go too deep tonight. We have 6 weeks before the council's going to take final action on this proposal. We've done a lot of work well in advance. So tonight, if you have general questions about the implications, it's great to ask kind of what goes where here, because there is a significant change that's happened, which is we've got a new chart of accounts. So I understand that it may be hard to fully understand what's in each category. Though one thing you should know is that everything we're looking at for this year is using the same chart of accounts as the new budget. So in that way, we are comparing apples to apples, okay? And one thing I want to say for the benefit of any reporters who are in the room or online is this budget is not ready for prime time. Everybody's being invited into a thoroughly, entirely transparent process, and you're seeing, excuse me, the sausage of this budget while it's being ground, right? So please do not put a story together in the newspapers that says, look at how much money the city of Newport's going to ask for next year. We don't know that number yet. We have a starting point. We're going to encourage everybody, council members especially, to go through this carefully and ask lots of questions over the next few weeks. We're going to have a town meeting that will be largely dedicated to looking at the questions in this budget. And I should say about that my hope is that by the end of this next week, we will have numbers that Carrie feels pretty thoroughly can be relied upon. They're real. We've had department heads have a chance to take a final look based on any questions that council members want to raise and say, here's where I think I could try and bring that number down, or here's where I think I misjudged that expense and it should be higher. They're going to make those changes, and we hope to produce something at the same time that we put out the final language, not final, but the next draft for charter language right before the holiday, right before Christmas. We hope to put out the next version of this budget, and that's the budget upon which we will have, or about which we will have a discussion on January 10th. And just to be clear, I think at that point, we're going to be having a conversation largely about what we value as a community. It will be less about, I don't want there to be that much line in that item, and more about, this is what things cost in order to have them, and what things, if these are the things we want, this is what it costs, right? And the question is, if this cost is unbearable, what things don't we want? Or where do we expect to raise more income? Or how do we expect to do it? And really, the only way to do that is likely through taxation. So just to be clear, that's the conversation. We're headed for a values conversation on January 10th. And right now, we really just want to know any questions people have about the format. And I think, Carrie, can you just give me the big numbers again? I think we were at it was $9,050,000 is the general fund total expense, correct? Minus income of 360? Sorry. 260.
2.65.
Yeah, so 265,000.
2.65 million.
2.65 million, and that's a combination of all kinds of income. It's Travis's dispatch income, and it's Mike's charging people to use the campground income, and it's also the income that we will bill to water and sewer funds to repay the general fund for its in-kind services, basically. Okay, and that's how you get to the total number, the total number that would have to be taxed in order to meet this budget of $6.4 million. Anybody want to? I think those are the big broad numbers that I wanted to make sure we said out loud so people could hear kind of what it is we're working toward. Chip, do you want to add anything up for clarity, please?
No, you're pretty good. and I think that, again, this is a piece, your past articles have said an amount to be raised by taxes to meet expenditures, and have not said what your total budget was and what your other sources are anticipated to be to reach the amount to be raised by taxes. So the next article relative to raising taxes should state all three of those numbers clearly and distinctly in it. And I think we had that discussion. When the budget is presented and this will happen, someone's going to say, well, I don't know what they did. They had a $7 million budget and now they got a $9 million budget? Well, before you said you had a $5 million budget, and when someone looked at it, the expenses were 7 and the amount used by taxes was 5. So, probably present in the clearest sense in the article that the voters approve an expense budget of, with anticipated other revenues of Y equals Z, the amount to be raised by taxes, for a fiscal year beginning July 1 through June 30, for the general fund and obligations. As well, the ability of the voters to authorize at the same time the motion to borrow funds in anticipation of taxes. As a distinct article, it doesn't name an amount, it simply authorizes you to borrow funds in anticipation of taxes. The third one is that you're allowed to obtain and expense grant funds so long as they meet the obligations of the grantee. And those are the type of articles I have yet to see the city present to the voters.
Okay, council members first. Any comments or questions about the big picture?
The last thing you mentioned, Chip, about grants and tracking and
You have to really speak up.
Oh, sorry. So the last piece that you just touched on, and being more transparent, we have on the grant front, we have talked about that in the fiscal task force, and I kind of see a little bit of that. Like, for example, not to jump the gun on a later agenda item, but we did get the municipal planning grant, and there is a 10% match, so I do see that allocated in the budget, but it isn't in line 60 for municipal planning grant. I don't know if that was just like a, so are we, and I appreciate accounting for our expenses, and my assumption is we're tracking grant revenues and expenditures as we receive and therefore reimburse them, or, I don't know, this again could be a topic to dive into more in the task force, but is that just kind of like, is line 60 blank because of all of the melee going on and it can be added later? Or is there a strategy in not having it listed?
So if you have no knowledge right now that a grant has been awarded, how can you budget for it and the matching in kind?
Yeah, I see the matching in kind budgeted, but I don't see the revenue part.
The 90% that is going to be covered by the grant.
Right.
So if you're anticipating a grant, but a project, I'm going to use quick numbers, $100,000 project of a $90,000 is anticipated to be grant revenue, and it's been awarded, then you can budget it that way, 90 in and 100,000 out. That nets into 10,000 has to be raised by taxation. But it's when in the middle of the year you get a grant and it's 90 and 10 and you didn't budget for 10. So you're allowed to do the grant so long as you compensate somewhere for the 10, which means some other line item that you had budgeted expenditures into may not get spent because you used the money to match the grant. But the voters authorize you and allow you to seek and utilize grant funding.
And so there's no necessary dollar amount attached to that warning, it's just
Not
a
at all.
statement.
Not at
Okay,
all.
wonderful, that was the other part, as I was like, that's really tricky to predict.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely. A grant will surface in front of you often, and you say, well, I didn't budget for that, so I can't apply. And we want to be able to apply, especially for any of those grants that are 100%.
yeah.
And you are constantly running Stone Garden, which, is 100% reimbursable for police officer time. And we don't know what that's going to be, but we know it happens.
Okay, council members, other questions?
I don't have any at this time.
Okay, members of the community? Go ahead, Jennifer, go ahead.
So, my understanding is that the past couple of years, we ran some pretty significant deficits. And my understanding of the statutes is that has to be put in front of the voters to be like approved and dealt with. I know that money was wrapped up in the bond vote, I believe, to get us out of that, to cover those deficits. But do we still have to be looking at putting it as a special article on the ballot in reference to the deficit is my question.
Can I ask the question? I don't know, I can check with the attorneys about it.
Yep, because I think that we do.
Let's ask, because
Yeah.
I think we did a pretty damn good job of explaining what we were doing in August.
And I don't disagree, but I think we gotta go back and read what the statute specifically mandate needs to occur and whether or not what we did in August satisfies those requirements. Because I'm not convinced it does.
So to be clear, your charter specifically says incurring debt longer than 1 year requires a public vote. And so that's why we did August 12th. If we could, through normal process, the city council, under regular statute, could have funded that debt over the course of 5 years without voter approval. But $1.3 million over 5 years would still be a tremendous hit.
But that's not what I'm referring to.
Okay, so I got the question, so we'll ask.
Okay.
We'll go to the attorneys and check on the language in the statute.
Thank you.
Feel free to send me the statute you think we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, Ann?
Yeah, could you just remind me how much was our total amount of tax the taxpayers had to pay last year in comparison to the 6.4 million? I know that's just an estimate now.
Just the beginning. Mhm.
But what was it last year?
I think it's under,
I believe it's the 5.7, right?
Yeah, 5.7, I think,
Yeah.
was it.
Just the next column.
5.77.
Line 2.
And I must admit I wasn't ready for the whole view. I'm too concrete. I had to deal with the little pieces. So maybe I'll have some other things to ask eventually.
I'll just say again, there are some people in this room, in addition to, I mean, first of all, this year what we've got is a finance team that is really doing a lot of due diligence and looking carefully. So we have some people, independent of the council, who are really trying to dive deep. And we have a few people in this room who have a habit, there are at least 3 that I can see as I look around the room, of looking really carefully at these questions. And we invite you to do so, but please write them down and provide them to Carter and the finance team so that we're not trying to rehearse them line by line in a council meeting, okay? We welcome the questions. Okay, Tom?
Yeah, I just don't normally take something out of the equation that brought to Carrie's attention earlier. Within the capital, there's a $84,000 installment for the grader, and the grader was actually in my 3rd year of the capital plan. So we can cut $84,000 right off the top.
We're going to start ringing a bell when somebody says that. That's great, and that's exactly the kind of tinkering we're going to do. I mean, Carrie put hours and hours and hours into this over the last several weeks, and by Friday afternoon, honestly, both of us were just kind of punchy, trying to figure out what we were even looking at. So I suspect there are mistakes in this in a number of places, though Carrie keeps saying, I ran it again a different way, and it came out to this number again. But we welcome the feedback, and department heads are going to go back and look at this stuff again carefully, and we'll try and come back with something we think is pretty close about a week from now. And I really appreciate, I want to say, I think the department heads have done a pretty terrific job of rethinking how we do this entirely. And you know, last year, I'll just point out, we were doing it without the benefit of an audit from the previous fiscal year and without any year-to-dates. So it was a guessing game. And if you go back several years, I mean, Carrie's found things like, you know, gross errors in calculations for the cost of benefits in a particular department that were being made that were not, I have yet to find anything that was done in the city's favor. Like, these errors keep coming up the wrong direction for me. But, so I'm grateful tonight. I asked all the department heads to be here to hear any questions that came up. They've been working hard on this, and we are not yet done.
I have a couple more questions.
Please.
So looks like we did budget for the East Cemetery. Which is exciting. I think that's the direction we're supposed to be headed, right?
I could be told, Chip's shaking his head yes, so I guess,
Yeah.
I guess I made the right choice, but yeah, I threw in money for mowing.
Yay.
For the cemetery, because we've been
Exciting.
spending it and not putting any money in the budget, so.
Yes. No.
Seemed like a good
Seemed
practice
like
to
a good
begin.
idea, yeah.
Oh, we're going to spend that. Let's budget for it.
Yeah, when you brought that up like an hour or hours ago, I was like, oh, I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
There.
What else, Carter?
And then my clarifying question is, when it says fiscal year actual to date,
Yeah,
what to date
it's like
were
mid-October.
You... Oh, okay.
It's
okay.
not current, so don't match that to what Chip went over.
Okay, that makes sense, because some of these numbers I was like, well then maybe
No,
we could.
I have not updated.
No, okay. Valid. I'm trying. Okay, and then to just clarify understanding, sorry, I'm zooming around. What we're talking about is consolidating the public works salaries. That's why we see such a big increase, is because we're lumping them back all into the general fund and they're no longer dispersed here and there through the water and sewer. And we will also see in yeah, and the interdepartment transfers and stuff like that. So although that is a large number, it's because we can see it all in one place.
Right.
Correct. Okay. Which that's excellent. let me zoom around. Might have a couple other questions, but I'm passing it.
Anybody else?
I'll make a
Jim?
comment on the mowing of the cemetery fund. I think that 23,000, they owe the general fund is from way back. To my knowledge, the cemetery fund has always paid the mowing that I can remember. I pay them $7,000 a year out of the cemetery fund checking book. So I think that 23,000 goes way back. So, I mean, you can budget for it.
So let's have that conversation, you and Chip and Carrie offline, okay?
Yeah.
Let's go back to that. Okay. Carter, anything else you want to put on the table tonight?
No, I'll save it for Wednesday.
Okay, go home, stay up all night, obsess, write us a letter, and we'll talk about it this week.
I do love letters.
All right. Chip, thank you for all your work on this too. I just can't say enough about how changed this process is. So, Carter,
Yeah.
I think we're up to you. Item 9, don't go far, Carrie. Actually, stick for one more. We're almost there. Credit card.
Yep, so this might be the third time we have been seeing this at this table. The majority of the edits have been at the second part of the documentation and payment section. We have modified that to basically try to make payments on time so we're not paying interest, because just as the process of when you get a bill for your credit card versus when city council meets and then the approval process and then we mail a check, like we're gonna get hit with interest payments. So we included as supportive and as instructive without being restrictive sentence about that, and how that process will be approved with coordination with the city treasurers, and also get approval by the city manager and mayor. We also talked about like the documentation. I think that was really important, but there's a lot that we're gonna get with the proposed Bank of America line, where there's a lot of like behind the scenes / not interdepartmental, but just departmental credit cards. So you'll be able to see and track within each department the receipts, which will just help, I think, the whole budgeting and tracking and what we're trying to go for. And what else? Oh, and we also added the financial line office administrator as the card authorizer. So that person in that role will be monitoring those accounts and making sure that nobody goes over their posted limit. So again, that backup support to make sure we're using the card appropriately. Am I missing anything? It's belabored. Yeah, we modified this, or we revisited it once we had a contract with an institution that we would get a line of credit. So to make sure, I don't know, it was like a nice backup mechanism. Any questions?
John, Kevin, Andrew, any questions? Okay, so we're going to do this in two parts. We're going to ask for approval of the credit card policy, and then we're going to move on to a specific conversation about the Bank of America proposal. Yeah.
Did you have a question?
I did. The limit is for the card as a whole, correct?
Mhm.
Not per person?
Correct.
Right, $50,000 limit
Right.
for the card for the account as a whole.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Carter, you want to move it?
Yeah. I make a motion to approve the credit card policy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further conversation, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you to Carter and Carrie and the finance team for all their work on this. Okay, and then Carrie, I think this takes us to you to speak a little bit about the Bank of America proposal you put before us.
Yeah, just generally speaking, this card slash program with Bank of America was recommended to us by St. Albans. This is what they use. So I approached Bank of America to ask them more about this, and it's been a long process. But I have a contract, and just to clarify, the 50,000 limit is for the entire account, like Rick said, and then essentially there will be 6. So as at the moment, 6 seats within the cards. So we'll have 6 separate cards. This will also differ from our prior credit card in that it won't be like tied to my name or tied to any single city employee's name. So if there's staff turnover, the card stays with the city. You just simply cancel that one card, order a new card. Each card will have individual limits that will be far less than $50,000. And I think that's specified in the policy, I suspect, but.
And it's set up so that when you receive a statement each month, it's broken
By
down,
the
it's
card.
card by card, because
Yeah.
the cards are coded.
Yeah,
to
which will be
itemize.
nice to split it out and not have to, it was a really manual process with the old card.
Yeah.
So just
So it's
one.
almost split by department?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were anticipating 3 cards for the police. I'll hold one, I might not hold it when we get a city manager, I don't know what that'll look like. One for Mike and one for Don. Correct. And public works.
You want to say a word about electronic payment?
Yeah, that was something that he brought up to me the first time we talked, is that we need to pay the card with ACH rather than paying by check in the mail, just to avoid late fees. So we are in the process. Chip, I think Jim, myself and Stacy need to have a conversation about how exactly that's gonna look. It's kind of been talked about, but there hasn't been like an official decision made on the exact process. But we've got a minute, so.
No more late fees.
Who needs to sign policy back?
Probably Carrie. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about the Bank of America proposal?
One thing that was brought up in the financial task force was, hey, this allows for cash advancements, but our policy says if anybody does that, it is grounds for termination. So, and also Carrie will be monitoring that. And then it's also termination / you force repayment or the term on that. So it's definitely not an approved move. And yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Bank of America credit card proposal and to authorize me to sign that proposal on the council's behalf.
I'll make that motion.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further conversation about this?
I think there was a comment about a limit of how much could be spent. Was it a $5,000 transaction limit?
$5,000 1 cent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then
anything over
Anything
that
over that.
needs approval.
And that's based from our purchase and procurement policy that the city holds, which we probably will eventually need to review because there's new higher standards. I don't know how to do that. So we'll be looking at that probably down the road.
Okay, any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries, and I am signing the document. That is another one that's a long time coming. Thank you, Carrie, for all your work. And now we release you. Chip, we're done with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Good night.
Good night, Chip. Thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, that takes us to item 10. There's nothing in your packet about this. It would just be, it's just me letting you know that if we would like to create the potential to continue the charter conversation, we would need to warn a second public hearing. So there's a requirement that there be 2 public hearings and that we warn them 30 days in advance. And so in order to make sure we have time, we've already appropriately warned the first public hearing on the charter to be held as part of our regular council meeting on January 5th, Monday night, January 5th. Then if you desire to have the potential for a second hearing, which doesn't mean we would have to use it. If we decided after the first hearing for some reason not to go forward, we could always back out. But in order to have the option of a second hearing, we would need to agree tonight on a date. And it seems to me you have three choices about that. One would be the following week, the off week basically, which would be January 12th, to hold a special meeting. Or we could hold a meeting anytime you want on a non-Monday night between the 5th and the 26th. And then the reason it has to be done by the 26th is because the council, having had the two public hearings, would have to take final action to approve a draft of the charter for the voters to decide upon at the meeting on January 26th. So basically what I'm asking is, would you all like to warn another meeting, and if so, for when?
I'm of the thinking to warn a second meeting of precaution and advance notice.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing we can't do it the 10th. We need 30 days, and it's already the 15th of December. So
Yeah.
that means actually your choices are to do it between the 15th, or let's say the 16th of December, of January, and the 26th, or to do it on the evening of the 26th and then hold a vote immediately following the public hearing. You can do it that way too.
And the tricky thing is the 19th is MLK Day.
Correct.
So that's
Don't
not
wanna
really
do it
on
then.
the option.
Could we do it on a Wednesday night?
The 21st?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
I'm free that evening.
Andrew?
I'm available.
John?
21st is okay.
Wednesday night, the 21st. That would be the second public hearing, which we will warn appropriately. Which would still allow us then to take up the matter on the 26th for a final decision about whether or not to go ahead. If that works for you all, somebody can make a motion to that effect.
I'd like to make a motion to hold a public hearing on, we just said it, January
21st.
21st, thank you, for charter provisions. Charter.
6 p.m. here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any comments, questions you all want to make as a council? Any comments or questions from the community? Lori?
So I think the state statute says we have to have two public meetings.
Mhm.
So the first one is this coming Monday night?
No.
When is
The
it?
first one is January 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This coming Monday night is only an informal, not informal, but it's not a public hearing. It's a chance for the council to take the comments from the lawyers and decide what to do with them, so that they can then create a draft that will be shared with the community in advance of the meeting on the 5th.
So that's the 5th and now the 21st.
And now the 21st would be the two public hearings.
And what's the 10th?
The 10th is a public town meeting day during which we do not intend to take up the charter. We've got plenty of other work to do that day.
And when can the council change the charter proposed up until
The 26th.
the 26th of January?
Sure. If the council chooses to move ahead based on all of what they've heard, they can edit, change, and then decide whether or not to move ahead with whatever the document they've kind of perfected on the 26th. The final decision, Jim, if I'm correct, has to be made no later than Monday the 26th. Yeah, it's got to be warned that week. Okay?
Yeah, and that actually suggests that having the special meeting in advance of the 26th makes a lot more sense than trying to jam it all in on that one night.
I agree. I think it's a good decision. Okay, I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. So, speaking of Carrie, you and I need to talk about how to get that warned with help from SBNF this week. 21st, Wednesday the 21st, and then a final decision about it on the 26th. Make sense, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay. That's number 10. Number 11. You want to share the good news?
Yeah, no, Carrie and Frank, way to go team. They got the municipal planning grant. Actually, a few were sought in our region across the NEK, and I think they were all approved. So strong just in general, but it's quite exciting because for Newport, this means we're going to have a feasibility study about thermal energy networking. Briefly talked about this when it was brought up, I don't know, a couple months ago. There is Vermont Thermal Energy Networks. It's this nonprofit led by Debbie New, and she's the bee's knees when it comes to making it make sense for your community, but also recognizes that it doesn't always. So this is just an initial high-level study to see where that could happen and how much it would cost. Why I am quite excited about it is because I'm gonna butcher it, but basically when you dig a trench to put in a thermal energy network, the cost and overhead is still covered by tax credits, and those are still protected under this administration. So a lot of tax credits, as we know, are going by the wayside in sunsetting either now or within the next year. But drilling is not, and so when it comes to something like this, it's an excellent opportunity to layer in other infrastructure projects, and it also is kind of a long-term plan for sustainable, affordable housing as well, and lower costs for businesses operationally. It's a number of ways resilient, but it's just also another way to own our energy, and I'm quite excited about that. But again, this grant is used to pay for that study, and one piece of that Debbie New is going to bring to the table is there's this whole community element where she's going to have basically like a kickoff and invite all sorts of stakeholders, mainly community residents, just to have a conversation, actually start identifying places before the feasibility study happens. So without saying too much more, because it's really not my forte, but I'm quite excited about it. This is also something that St. Johnsbury is actively looking into, so kind of like a sister city. So quite excited. So thank you to those in the office who applied for this grant.
Yeah, great work, Carrie and Frank. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and there's also some pretty cool community members that are just residents that were super awesome behind that effort too. So, yeah.
Okay. No action needed, right?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on. Frank, you're up.
I would suspect you want the short.
Yes, we want the short version. Yes, sir. Come and join us.
All right, so there's been some interest in grant reporting. We haven't done this since last April. I keep a running tab. All right, and if anybody wants to talk about an individual grant at any point, you can just contact my office. These are the open grants. Open means we just received them, we're actively working on the project, or we're doing reporting and run out. Until they're officially closed, they don't come off the list. I won't go into it in too much detail. I'll give you an overview. If you look at the report in April and you look at the activity it has been, we have done an enormous amount of work since April to start cleaning some of this backlog up. 4 major projects fundamentally complete, many smaller projects completed. Not only have we upgraded the compliance with the reporting and the revenue collection, but it is very well organized and everybody's working together, and we now can move forward. Once this backlog is sort of released, we're hoping that it will settle down a little bit. I will say that, when we talk about the major ones, the Bluffside Pump Station, the water tower, the causeway, Gardner Park, Right, these are all fundamentally done, many of them very old, all squeezed into a period between April and today, along with some other ones. Okay, I will say it comes at a cost, right? And this isn't really part of a grant report, but I do want to say this, that, you know, Mike's gone, but Mike, my NVDA surrogate, okay, Tom and his department, the amount of work that has been done, okay, in this period of time. And I think that's especially true if we talk about public works, and I would strongly advise the council, okay, to factor that in when making decisions going forward. Because there is a cost, even though it's not cash, there is a cost to this, okay, and I've watched it. And again, if we have better advanced planning and we don't wait and have them all, you know, happen at the same time and those sorts of things. As far as the individual projects go, the water tower is online, fundamentally complete. We should have final invoicing by the middle of January. The bond loan went in Friday. Okay. Gardner Park, fundamentally complete. The corrective action plan has been formally submitted to the state. We're awaiting final approval, and then we can close that grant out. Tom has got the causeway going, and it looks like we might actually be substantially complete by the end of the year or the 20th, so on and so forth. We haven't been invoiced very much yet, although they started today.
Yeah, I'll just say a word about that. Everybody should be aware that when we look at our assets and our bottom line right now, we have the better part of $850,000 at least still to come in bills on the Causeway project that we're still sitting on until the project's done.
And the Bluffside pump station is done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and some smaller ones as well. Mike's cabin, the rescue boat. Okay. We have some that, and we're moving the rest of them forward. There is movement forward on the grandstand. There is movement forward significant on MERP and with the 3-acre storm permit. I think that overall, there's been an enormous amount of work done, okay? I will say it is at a cost, okay? Anybody have any questions? No? Good. Oh, okay.
Let you get away from
Go ahead,
Ann. In the past, based upon something that Laura Dahlgren had said, she said, think of all the money we've saved you taxpayers by having gotten the money for this grant. And that really only can possibly exist when we, the taxpayers, let's say pay to pave 20 streets for, I don't know what, $20,000. And then you get a grant that comes in and you get the money for the grant that paves the streets. Now, this $20,000 sort of sitting there that the taxpayer paid, and she was talking about it as a savings, but sometimes we'd like to see that money go into a fund, you know, for something in that vicinity, and not just sort of get disappears. The grant paid for the streets, and the taxpayer paid for those same streets, but the grant money was used for them. Is anybody keeping an account of where's this extra money that the taxpayer paid going?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I don't know that I should speak to what happened in the past. Going forward, there's a direct division between what the grant is responsible for and what the taxpayers are. If what your question is it free money? No. Okay, when you spend $1 million and you get $350,000 in grants, the taxpayers have to come up with the other $700,000.
No, that's not my question.
What's your question?
So, I think the short answer to your question is it's in a far tighter accounting system. So every grant will show all the money that comes in and how it's getting spent and where it's going on the way out. And there's been a lot of work done on that this year. And if there's a match in it, every penny of that match has to be accounted for in the grant, and therefore it's also in our accounting system. So you can ask for a report on any project and we can show you exactly where that money came in and went out.
But I'm saying this extra money that comes to the city in those instances where you, in the budget, now say, you know, we're gonna have to repair X street, Y
okay,
street,
I
and Z
understand.
street.
You're saying because we didn't budget for that grant income, and we
That's
did
right.
budget to spend it on tax income, tax money. So Chip's not here anymore, but I'm pretty confident that I know how he would answer that, which is that that money rolls into a capital fund and you can decrease future contributions to the capital fund as a result.
That would be nice.
That's the conversation I've had with him, which I don't have documented anywhere, and I'm sorry he's not here to answer the question. But we can ask him again on Wednesday morning or something.
That did not happen before.
I understand. That's the practice going forward, I promise. We can talk more about it to make sure I'm right when I promise it. Because it makes me a little nervous when I promise things I'm not fully aware of. But I think that's the
I
answer.
think that's accurate.
And I think
I'm sorry, I didn't
I think
understand
your
the
statement
question.
is true for the general fund, Rick, but maybe not water or sewer.
Well, if it went forward in the water and sewer, it would have to be for the same purpose, is my understanding. Right? You can't, you're correct, and it can't leave that fund. So, yeah, there are some guardrails in it. Okay, any other questions or comments for Frank? John Manette asked about a week ago where we were on our grant accounting, and it made me realize we haven't talked about it in months, though there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes to try and clean it up. I think you inherited, what, 26 open grant processes, many of which were we're talking about grants that go back 7, 8, 9 years, some of them. So it's been a real chore to try and clean it all up. That's the other thing. The way you stay on top of it is you stay on top of it. So
Get them done.
get them done.
I
Okay.
will say though, Carter, that after that the discussion you brought up with the grant budgeting, Chip and I are still going back and forth on that, and you and I should talk after, because I do think that you have a point. Okay, that's it.
That's it. Thank you, Frank. Item number 13, may I have a motion to enter into executive session as per 1 VSA section 313A3 regarding decisions about consideration of pay increases for specific employees, and I'd like that to include all council members and Director of Public Works, Tom Bernier, for the beginning of it. I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We are in executive session. Carter's not here, but I think we can go ahead. May I have a motion to come out of executive session in which no action was taken?
So moved.
I have a motion, a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving on, item number 14 is various task force reports. John?
So Water and Sewer met last week and discussed, I guess, high-level questions regarding the budget and started to discuss some other specific issues. There are a number of policy questions that we're going to have to work out in terms of updating the ordinance, and I've started compiling a list.
Okay. Is there a next meeting? We didn't end up setting a next meeting.
We did,
we?
and I can't remember when it is, but I'll tell you in just a
It's the
second.
8th of January? Thank you, Patrick. So the next meeting will be January 8th.
Yeah.
Patrick, you want to add anything to that report? Okay. Okay, thank you, John. Kevin, anything you want to say about the housing insecurity public encampment?
Remember when our last meeting was?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks, I think it was 3 weeks ago now. And I'll just report kind of from the community perspective that it still looks vaguely possible that we can get the warming shelter up and running by Christmas. It'll either be right before or right after Christmas. We have had insurance promised, lost it, and have another offer, and we're waiting to see if we can get a competitive offer right now. So the insurance question, I have some confidence is going to work itself out. Again, I thought I was fully confident, and then that didn't work. And the renovations to the space are apace. They're happening apace. And this weekend is an all hands on deck volunteer weekend for anybody who wants to come help on Saturday or Sunday with doing things like final painting projects and putting beds together and all that kind of stuff. And if all goes well, we'll be ready for an inspection that we have scheduled with the state fire marshal on Monday morning, the 22nd, a week from today, at at 9, and if it doesn't, we may have to put it off. If we can't quite get the final projects done, we may have to put it off a little longer. So that's where we are in that. Andrew, fire department?
We have not met lately. We do have a meeting scheduled for the third week, I believe, in January, but stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 15, public comment. Who we got on our list there, Andrew? You okay? You want some help?
It was that rough.
It really overcame you there, didn't it?
Wow, and you can't even see your hand.
Go ahead, Ann.
Okay, I wanted to continue talking about the charter. I thought,
I'm gonna ask you to keep your comments to under 3 minutes tonight.
yeah,
Okay.
because I have another 3 coming next week.
That's right. Next week we'll have plenty of time to talk about it again.
Okay, but I want you to think about this. We took out several loans, and we approved, the citizens approved 5 of them. And it's easy on the water tower, that was easy because that is a capital expenditure. And so the whole process is obvious. But you no longer have, when you switch from the old charter to the new charter, certain remedies that we had under the old charter. For instance, what happens when you're over budget? The old charter explained that you had to go back to the voters and ask them basically for the extra money to put into the budget. The new charter has no process for it. And if you go to the state statute, and I looked through all those books that you showed us, there's no process for it. So then, do the voters get to decide? Or does the council get to decide? Well, I know which one I want. The second thing, with respect to what happens, you took the vote on monies going into the taxpayer paying for a loan where we hadn't put the state municipal adjustment in the right place. Well, all the loans that are described in the state statute deal with things that you are spending, capital assets and things like that. Those are the loans that they talk about for bonds and all the other things. There's nothing for, you made a mistake over 7 years in the municipal state adjustment, and now you can take a loan, and who gets to decide on that vote? So you go from our statute that says when you see some sort of mistake or you need a loan and it's for over a year, citizens need to approve it, to the state statute that gives you a whole bunch of things you can get loans for, like capital expenses, but doesn't say anything about what about loans for mistakes and who gets to approve them, the citizens or the council, or maybe the town manager. So you haven't looked at the gaps that are in the new charter that allude to using the state statutes that don't cover the issues. I've given you 2 that I think are significant.
Thank you. Who's next?
Me.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Hello.
Don't say anything, but I want to get every word.
Jim's.
He does not want to miss a single pearl of.
I noticed you brought an extra tape this week, Jim.
He's
Yes,
smart.
I did. My
He is
wife told me to
smart.
make sure I did.
One of the things that was suggested tonight was that instead of asking questions about taxes and things that arise, that it should be put in writing so that the fiscal task force can look at it. Here's why that won't work. And this is no disrespect to the fiscal task force. We get the information that we discussed tonight on Friday. The city council meeting is on Monday. The fiscal task force meeting is on Wednesday. And the next city council meeting is 2 weeks after that. When we read something, if we read all 200 and however many pages of it, obviously we have questions, and when it comes up at a meeting, we're going to ask them. So suggesting that we put it in writing for the fiscal task force is not going to happen. But it was a good idea.
Thank you for that. Who's next? Jennifer.
Jennifer Bierley, Newport City. I had explained to you folks that if you didn't change the personnel policy, I couldn't get behind your charter revision. And I stand on that. You are looking to make the treasurer and the city clerk appointed positions in your charter revision. And you're having them work under the direction of the council. And as appointed employees, they're not going to be covered by a collective bargaining agreement. So they are going to be appointed employees that fall under your city policy, your personnel policy. And all it's going to take is, one or two, for lack of a better term, nefarious, corrupt, whatever, council people that are not looking after the best interests of Newport. They want their brother in the office. They want their sister in the office, whatever it might be. And they come in and they can now fire for no reason, right? Any reason. We don't like the fact that you wear pink. We don't think you look good in pink. So we're going to fire you. That's a reason. So for any reason, they can fire the treasurer. They can fire the city clerk. And they can put in their brother. And they can put in their sister. And then you have a council that's setting policy, and you've got people in your treasurer's and your city clerk's office that are relatives of the council. And, this is how embezzlement happens. It is no surprise that there is so much embezzlement that happens in the Northeast Kingdom. And we've got it going on in the papers right now at the hospital. So, Spates Florist, EB5, the list goes on. There's been so many cases of embezzlement up here. And you guys are setting things up for that to happen. Coventry, embezzlement. We don't know exactly who did it, but we know there's a lot of money missing. And I tried to tell you guys, if you did this, it was going to be wrong. And it's falling on deaf ears. And the grievance policy at the end of the day doesn't do squat. Because number one, the city manager is the last voice. And if the city manager is being threatened by the council, you can be darn tootin' they're going to carry out the council's orders. And number two, at the end of the day, if you have a clause that says you can get fired for any reason, the fact that you wear pink, then the grievance policy doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't need a reason to fire somebody. So you've put the residents of Newport just extraordinarily at risk. We do not have to look back far in history to understand what I'm talking about. And I can't support your charter change.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else on the list tonight? Okay. New business. Anybody got new business?
No, thank you.
Carter?
Yeah, but I'll wait. It's 10 o'clock.
Okay, old business. You want wait on the new business, but you want to throw in some old business?
Yeah, no.
Anybody else? Old business?
No, thank you.
Jim?
No.
Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for a special meeting next Monday night, the 22nd, 6 p.m. The primary topic will be to look at the charter revisions or edits or suggestions from the city attorneys. There may be a few other items we put on that agenda as well, depends on how the week goes. I've got at least one permit. Jim's got at least one permit request that came in this morning, so we'll warn that as part of it next week as well. Do I have a motion for the next special council meeting held December 22nd at 6?
So moved.
Got a motion from John, a second from Carter. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn, Kevin?
Yep.
You got it. Any second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.